What if love began in the classroom, when a carefree student meets a mysterious teacher?
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Luffy Was in College and Has Teacher Robin as Girlfriend movie. Before we start, please go support SlayerShane for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Luffy is a male. Luffy enters college filled with excitement, where he encounters many problems, where he'll have to live with them all and solve them. However, a certain teacher is giving him a certain eagerness to study. Prologue. I woke up like every morning, sat down on my bed, and went straight to the bathroom. I washed my face and brushed my teeth. I made water for coffee and took the time to read a page in my book. When I finished, I poured my coffee and got ready to go to school, although I guess I should say university now. First day, and as such, I was anxious. Studying isn't something I enjoy, but when you already have a goal, I think things are a little less complicated from here on out. How exciting, I said enthusiastically. Without realizing it, due to my little jumps of joy, I almost knocked over my coffee container. Careful, a woman stopped the boat before it fell, long black hair, beautiful without a doubt. Thank you. What do you have in that? I asked about the boat. Coffee, I said smiling. Oh, I remembered I forgot mine, she mentioned. We were both waiting for the bus, without any sense we stayed in the same place. Are you going to work? I asked to break the ice. Yes, first day of work, nothing prepares you for this, she said smiling. Nervous? A little, I don't really know what awaits me in this job, she commented. I felt more comfortable. We both arrived at our destination. Well, I guess it's the same for me, but my grandfather always said that as long as you do the best you can, it's the best you can do, I said. Without realizing it, we were both still walking in the same direction. A very wise thought from your grandfather, she said. We both went to college. Yes, although the guy is a very scary guy, he was a great hero of the Navy, I commented while walking through the halls of the university. He must be a man with high values, she said, reminding me a little of my grandfather. He was many things but not someone decent or normal. Let's say yes. I understand. Where are you going? She asked. The room 2D, it's also the first day, but I feel like I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Funny, apparently I'm your teacher, wow, quite a coincidence for the first day. Chapter 1. His name is Robin. Good morning, my name is Nico Robin, I will be your teacher for the first 3 days. Welcome to the university. The class started like any other, with explanations of the topics and what we would be learning in her class. When the class was over, she left, and although I was certainly curious to meet her, I assumed that speaking to her in a friendly manner would be something that many would misinterpret. In the end, I was a little anxious to be able to talk to him again, but I decided to take my classes calmly. Maybe I could talk to him during the break. I'm hungry. I said to myself. When the bell rang, I was one of the first to leave and go to the cafeteria to get something to eat. I bought a soda and a plate of food. How were your classes? It was Robin who sat down with me. I felt happy to see him again. Oh, I guess they're okay. It was unexpected to know that you were my teacher in the early hours, she smiled. I guess it was all a great coincidence. Do I look young? Quite a bit, I said without thinking, as I continued eating. Then I remembered something I had bought. Good to know. So like me, she's new at school, I commented. She nodded. That's right, I had a tour recently, but I'm still not used to it, she explained. Wow, the truth is that the school is huge. I thought I would get lost on the first day. Good thing it wasn't like that. If I hadn't run into her, maybe I wouldn't have gone to her class, maybe the conversation would have been different. I guess that's good. Right, I bought him a coffee, she smiled. I guess she liked me after she told me at the bus stop. Thank you so much. But this we conclude today's classes ended. I grabbed my things and like everyone else, I went to the exit. I couldn't find out more about Robin, so I guess I'll have to wait until tomorrow to continue talking to her. I thought I'd run into her again at the bus stop. I waited a bit but had no luck, so I got on the one that had arrived. SHH. For a moment, I looked back. I assumed that the group behind me was the noisy one, however there was a girl among them, apparently they were harassing her. Come on, you're going to have fun. Hey, I said approaching them. What do you want, boy? Don't bother her. The girl had blue hair, quite striking. I think she went to the same university as me. Don't worry, kid, she's coming with us, said one of the guys, however she looked very uncomfortable about it. It's true. Come on, tell him that. The 5 of us were interrupted by the driver. Hey, people in the back, move aside. Damn, the 3 guys left and left the girl alone. I accompanied her until she made the stop herself and got off. Let's go. The guys stayed on the bus. Oh, right, my name is Luffy, I introduced myself first. Vivi, Nefertari Vivi, thanks for the help. Those guys had been following me since I left university. My assumptions were correct. If it hadn't been for that, the situation would have been bad for me. You're welcome, don't let them intimidate you, ask for help. Don't worry, I know it's dangerous when a girl goes alone, but I have a way to defend myself. He showed me a pepper spray. I felt a chill, although in closed spaces that is something dangerous to use. Wow, I think I had it under control, she commented, looking a little ahead. I thought I saw her. I'll be honest, I was a little scared to use it, she said, laughing nervously. Don't hesitate, believe me, if you feel threatened get rid of it as soon as you can, I said, returning my gaze to her. I think I was confused, however, my apartment in the condominium was in that direction. Has something similar happened to you? I denied. Chapter 2. A simple cup of coffee. My grandfather always told me that we should be careful, I mentioned, although he was a great Marine he was not a great grandfather. Great advice from your grandfather, thanks anyway. Don't worry, I don't like it when others bother people. Thanks for everything, see you. Vivi said goodbye. For my part I went to my apartment. Of Luffy. I'm sure I saw her, but I doubt we both live in the same condominium. That would be too much of a coincidence. I mean, if time goes by and I get into trouble, it could be awkward to have her. Luffy? When I turned around I noticed that Robin was coming out of one of the apartments. Opposite? Do you live here? She asked, surprised. Yes, in 2D, are you the one who lives in 3D? I said in amazement. She smiled. Yeah, I moved in a few weeks ago before school started. Apparently I was going to the gym given the clothes I was wearing. Oh yeah, I saw some moving boxes these days. Welcome, I would have told her if I had found her before. After that, she left. I never thought I would see her more often, at least not outside of school. I never thought I would feel something like this. I mean, I know very well what these feelings are. I know I'm feeling something different. I mean, I have to feel things for girls my age, but I feel things for an adult woman. I woke up in the morning and went to the fridge to get something to eat. It was still early, so I'd make it to the bus stop on time. When I finished breakfast, I grabbed my things and left my apartment. I checked the time. It wasn't that late yet. Maybe I could wait for her, but maybe she's still waiting. I'd better go down and find her anyway. Good morning. Good morning, Robin. I don't know if it's her gaze or simply her elegant bearing, but there's definitely something about this woman that makes me feel, and I can't describe it. This time, I brought my coffee. I'm glad, I smiled. We both enjoyed the journey. The classes for me took a backseat when I heard her beautiful voice. When her class ended, I continued with the others until break came. I went to buy something to eat. In the cafeteria I ran into the girl from yesterday, Vivi. Apparently we both studied at the same school, only she went to more advanced classes, and I still hadn't bought the uniform. Are you going to buy something? She asked. I nodded. And? Don't worry, let me treat you to something, because of the other day I was thinking of turning him down until I remembered that I'm not that well off financially. Thank you. So, apart from the fact that we both study here, what's up? I thought for a bit about what to say, however, the only thing I could think of was to comment on Robin's situation. Well, apparently there's a teacher living near where I live too, she's quite nice. I see, it's a common thing. Despite not knowing Vivi very well, I didn't have the feeling that she was a bad person. I guess, on the other hand, I have to see where I will work on the weekends. Money problems? I nodded, although well, more than problems it was the fact that I had to have something to do on my weekends. Something like that. Well, it happens to all of us. I work part-time near a restaurant. There's a gentlemanly guy, although somewhat annoying. It was admirable to me. She was working, and I was barely thinking about it. We both talked a little about our classes. Apparently, we only shared one class, so her curriculum was more complicated and filled with many more subjects. She was undoubtedly a brilliant girl. She was the daughter of a millionaire or something like that. Sounds like a really fun atmosphere, I said, laughing. I can't imagine a guy running around chasing women. I wouldn't classify it that way, but it's definitely great. Good morning, young people. Robin sat with us. Hello, Robin, I greeted somewhat excitedly. Teacher, be polite, Vivi corrected me. The three of us chatted a little until it was time to return to class. I couldn't wait this time to go out with her. Chapter 3. Confusing feelings. Robin's POV. I arrived at my apartment, left my things on the table, and grabbed my computer. I started working on my assignments for the deadline. I wanted to have materials for the students to read. Although I'm sure not everyone would do it, I still have to do my work well. Part of this is my responsibility. After a few hours of work, I went to my room, changed into something more comfortable, some tight pants and a matching shirt. I had to go for a run before the sun went down. I used to go to the gym that was close to where the apartments were. The ideal time was 5 in the afternoon, so the time I exercised gave me some light so I wouldn't be alone at night. Hello, is everything okay? Yes, were you waiting for me? I asked jokingly. I had noticed for a while that Luffy, my student, seems somewhat interested in me. I don't think it's because of some challenge or something fashionable where boys look to go out with a teacher. Oh, well, don't get the wrong idea, I was going out to buy some things. I understand, see you later. I could tell he was a good person, maybe a little innocent, but deep down good-hearted. Without realizing it, someone knocked on my door. I wonder who it is. I doubt it's Luffy. Luffy went out to do his shopping. He thought about buying something for Robin, however he realized that he didn't know him at all. He only knew that he liked coffee. That inspired the young man to want to know more about his neighbor and teacher. On the other hand, after having finished shopping while walking, he noticed something that caught his attention. There were some guys bothering a boy. Luffy ignored that event for a moment, however his values and principles told him that he should help the stranger. Luffy returned, not without first leaving his purchases in a safe place, on his way to those men. Leave him alone. The guys looked at him and looked at each other. They laughed a little and ignored Luffy while they teased the boy. Luffy sighed and took a rock, threw it at the guys. They took out a knife and angrily went against Luffy. Damn, don't play the hero. Luffy stopped his attacker's wrist with his hand. With a turn he made him drop the stabbing weapon. With a kick between the legs he left the other guy on the ground breathless, while with his hands he brought the other closer and headbutted him. I look at the two subjects who were now on the ground. Thank you. You're welcome, just be careful. Luffy. It happened again. I need to stop solving problems. I'm not a hero, much less someone strong. Grandpa, you always said we should help others, but I don't feel like I have all the strength for that. It gives me a headache thinking about this. I just want to go home and eat. As I was walking up the stairs to the apartment I noticed Robin's door was open. I told you no, I left that life in the past. Nobody escapes their past, you heard. When I opened the door I noticed a tall man with long hair and a hat grabbing Robin by the hair. I could see how upset she was. Who are you? That's what I'm asking. You're hurting her, I said in a serious tone. Get out of here, brat. Seeing that he released Robin in a very unpleasant way, I got angry. Are you okay, Robin? Please, no. Before I could say anything else, I was hit by the guy. I was shocked, but I had to stay calm. As long as she didn't say anything to me, I had to be calm. Don't bring a student into this. You owe me, Robin, so you have a few days to sort out your situation. Next time I won't be so considerate. The guy left. Robin shed a small tear. I helped him and prepared something. I wanted to know what the guy was referring to. If he owed money I could help him. I know I can. I don't want to see Robin with tears on his face. What do you owe the guy? Chapter 4. Past debts. Robin's pav. Are you okay? Yes, believe me, I'm tough, Luffy said smiling, giving me some tea. I'm sorry about all this. I thought my past wouldn't follow me, I said sighing. I was sad that all this was happening to me. What do you owe him? A long time ago, I was a kind of assistant to a guy. We earned money but he died. He messed with some people, and well, I have to pay his debts. I escaped from that place, however I knew it wouldn't save me forever. What kind of debts? He fought, he made money and well, he was very good at fighting. Losing was not an option, so when he did it, he angered many people. Saul, he was a great person, my best friend. So it's money for fights. Yes, in short, I said taking a sip of tea. You couldn't fix everything just by fighting. Face those guys, there are rules, you fight as you can, although well, I don't know how it is currently. He smiled after I told him that. Then they'll fight, as long as they leave her alone. What? No, you can't do that, you'd have to fight like 3 times, expert rivals, and he interrupted me and smiled with great confidence on his face. It doesn't matter, I'll beat them all, even if they leave her alone. I sighed. There was no way I was going to accept this, however he looked at me with an expression that I could hardly refuse. Luffy. Learning to fight is a complicated thing. Robin called that guy and said she would pay his debt as long as he gave her a few months to go and introduce herself. To make sure she wasn't lying, she signed a pact, 3 fights and nothing more. She told me that she had a complicated life. She ran away from home after her mother disappeared. Her friend Saul fought to take care of her, and she managed her money, and they made some friends and enemies. Saul died, and because of that a debt remained on her record that Robin had to pay from now on. No, even if he asks me, I can't accept that. You don't know those guys. Please, whatever the situation is, I can handle it. Let me help you, I said smiling. She sighed. After finishing her tea, she looked at me seriously. Because? Why, what? Why do you want to help me? I just smiled and said. I don't know, I just want to see you happy. Just tell me if you don't want to, I'll understand, I said somewhat discouraged. Just give me the chance. I don't want you to get hurt, so we'll have to train. And? The following days were different in terms of routine. On one hand, Robin gave her classes as she normally does. On the other, every afternoon she went out for a run, gave me a diet, taught me how to fight, and showed me some videos that she had saved. Different fighters, there were no rules regarding size, simply an arena where they fought, and the one who was standing emerged the winner. So with that in mind, between each morning, I studied twice as much as necessary. I made an effort to go out every day. I practiced a single movement. I had to become expert in a single technique. I learned various arts, practices and movements. Despite not having an assisted guide, I hit the wall every morning, perfected my fist and learned to kick. I pushed my body to the limit every morning, breakfast and exercise, and in the afternoons, I sparred with a punching bag, all of which was guided by my teacher, Robin, who was certainly somewhat pleased with my progress. She followed me every step of the way until, in no time, I'd gotten into some shape. I guess I was ready for my first fight. Robin's POV. The fight was in a cage, the place was an underground neighborhood. Rob Lucci brought one of his fighters. I didn't know his name, but his appearance was fearsome. However, he wasn't the one I would fight. Luffy's rival, my fighter, sounds strange once I say it. Welcome to Ragnarok, fight among fights, fighters of all sizes. Today's bet will leave you surprised. Luffy had trained a lot, but I couldn't shake off my nerves that he might get seriously injured in his first fight. On the far Japanese side, a man whose appearance is formidable, debuting like his opponent, Inosuke Hashibara. On the local side, being new to the arena, Monkey D Luffy. Chapter 5. For a reason. Months before. How are you feeling? Robin asked Luffy, who was finishing his exercise routine. Exhausted. Normal, however I'm surprised at how durable you are. Robin had trained Luffy, teaching him how to punch, use the environment, and facilitated his previous ability to kick. My grandfather taught me how to survive before, although well, it is complicated, however I know how to fight quite well, Luffy said. With Robin's help he did not neglect his studies and was able to continue training intensively. I have the person you will face, he is a very strong, skilled and flexible subject. I see, don't worry, I'll try to defeat him as quickly as possible, Luffy said. Luckily for both of them, the rival, like Luffy, were debutants in the tournament. On the far Japanese side, a man whose appearance is formidable, debuting like his opponent, Inosuke Hashibara. On the local side, being new to the arena, Monkey D Luffy. Inosuke, with a rather muscular body, had a boar emblem, seemed prepared for the fight, in his area, by his representative, a long-haired girl. Luffy and Inosuke both entered the fighting arena, a large hexagon where they could be seen. The fights there were simple, bare knuckle, anything went. The fight began. Inosuke was the first to run towards Luffy. He spun on the ground, quickly attacking with a kick. Luffy defended himself, covering the damage with his arms, however Inosuke attacked with punches. Impacting the black-haired man's body, Inosuke jumped and sent Luffy to the other side. What do you think? I'm pretty cool. Luffy stood up, both looked at each other and advanced. Luffy gave a blow, however Inosuke let himself go backwards. Luffy did not see the kick coming that hit his face. He had bled slightly. The stands were excited to see the skill of the muscular young man. He gave young Luffy no respite, continuing to lash out with blow after blow, until, with his guard down, he finally knocked him down. On the ground, Luffy was attacked, and it seemed that the fight was about to end. However, Inosuke stopped. What? Contestant Inosuke is bleeding, said the presenter. After a flurry of blows and dominance in the fight, the participant Inosuke has stopped. Luffy pushes him with his legs, stands up and puts himself on guard. His fist had some blood. Inosuke, angry, prepares himself too. What did you do? I hit you. Luffy waited for his rival to be a medium distance away from him, quickly taking advantage of his height. He connected a punch in his rival's face, however he did not give up, and keeping the fight on the low ground, Inosuke moved as if he were an animal. With quick kicks, Luffy evaded them, however connecting a blow already seemed complicated to him. Then Luffy changed tactics, stopped a kick and brought his rival closer. With his free hand a strong punch connected with Inosuke's face. Damn. Inosuke stretched a little. Luffy sighed. He was getting tired, however his rival looked pretty good despite the blows. You're strong, but I will not lose. I'm the best, I'll win this fight. Inosuke and Luffy run, and both hit each other at the same time. However Inosuke with a kick to the ground, and turning around knocks Luffy down. However he manages to stop Inosuke's punch, takes his arm completely, and with a spin slams him against the wall. Then he continues giving blow after blow. The participant Luffy attacks Inosuke, who seems unable to defend himself from the attacks. Luffy is pushed, he is hit by Inosuke's fists, neither seems to want to give up. Luffy. I want to finish this, I didn't think it was going to take this much out of me. This guy is strong, he doesn't look human, I just have to hit him. One hit, my strongest hit. Come on, this is great, a rival at my level, I will finish you, I will win. My rival comes straight at me, spins around and kicks me, his fist quickly goes for my face, however at last I see an opening, I extend my arm however the guy ducks. The blow hits me, when I look towards the people, I see her. Robin looks worried, I feel like my rival is about to give his final blow, I lean against the wall, my breathing is agitated, I quickly dodge the attack, he hits the wall however he just turns his gaze and tries to hit me again, then I evade his second attack. I take his head and slam it against the wall, that stuns him, I quickly kick his stomach to finish it off, a direct blow with my fist to his face. However, he gets up, he puts himself back on guard. What are you made of? Just like that before he could finish Inosuke fell to the ground. Chapter 6. Recovery. Luffy wins. It was the last thing the young man heard, he managed to walk to the exit, Robin received the money from the fight, paying the part that corresponded to him, however there was still a long way to go to settle his debt, but, in his head, she only thought about going quickly with Luffy, because after the fight she knew he was exhausted. I arrived at the locker room, Luffy was sitting with labored breathing, Robin gave him something to drink and helped him to the exit, his part of that day was over, and he deserved a rest. Luffy endured until he got home, just as he knocked on the door he fell exhausted. Robin prepared some food, noticing that Luffy's body was somewhat injured, he was undoubtedly a resilient young man, however a fight, regardless of who it is, causes him to get hurt. I spent the afternoon and night bandaging Luffy and changing ice packs, while Luffy woke up after a long nap. Robin's pav. Robin. How are you feeling? I asked Luffy, I had put some bandages on him. My body hurts, but I think I'm better, did I win? Yes, but you should rest, you've just started, and I don't want you to overexert yourself for no reason, I explained to him, while changing the blanket for a new one. Don't worry, now that I know how it all is, I'll win the next fight without any problems. You should be less confident, not all rivals are so aggressive, besides we spend so much time training your strength that we haven't polished a technique, after seeing the fight I noticed the same thing. Technique. Inosuke was aggressive, but his blows were low, always at a height that forced you to fight in an uncomfortable way, that and his agility made it look like you were fighting an animal. Analyzing the rival was my job during my work with Sol, however now that I have Luffy things are more complicated because he doesn't have a defined style. I see. We need to practice what your fighting style will be like, that way in the next fight you won't get hurt so badly. Luffy nodded. Well, how do I learn that? We'll need a little more help, I thought for a bit, the only one who could help me is a very old and bitter friend. Robin's pav. But the Electric Islands were discovered, being the third strangest found by navigators, that's all for today. Class ended, and I noticed some people looking at Luffy with some nervousness. He was still a bit hurt, and it was obvious to anyone. After class, we both went to a gym. It wasn't a conventional one, but it would serve as a training ground for Luffy. 100. Good job, said a man with green hair. This place is great. Greetings, my name is Zoro, owner of the place. He extended his hand to Luffy. Hi, my name is Luffy. I'm Robin, I introduced myself. What brings you here? Oh, you came to learn how to fight. And? I see, guys from school. I pointed at Luffy's wounds, he shook his head slightly. Something like that. Don't worry, when I was little they also bothered me, come on, fighting is something that shouldn't be done, but if you have no choice you will have to know how to act so as not to lose, he said, took Luffy and went to the center of the place. Understand? I explain. Hiding bare knuckle is what is known as a man fight, without low blows. On the other hand, when an opponent has a weapon the fight is uneven, however depending on the weapon, the rival is the nervous one, because confident in having the advantage he never expects to be disarmed. Now, in groups against a single man, it is unlikely that you can win, so it is best to go back, forcing them to separate and go one by one. Every fight is defined by who controls his time better. Zoro stood on guard and struck twice, Luffy did the same, both fought for a short time, no less than 10 minutes, however Luffy looked more tired. Time? Chapter 7. Style. Robin's pav. Something like that. Don't worry, when I was little they also bothered me, come on, fighting is something that shouldn't be done, but if you have no choice you will have to know how to act so as not to lose, he said, took Luffy and went to the center of the place. Understand? I explain. Hiding bare knuckle is what is known as a man fight, without low blows. On the other hand, when an opponent has a weapon the fight is uneven, however depending on the weapon, the rival is the nervous one, because confident in having the advantage he never expects to be disarmed. Now, in groups against a single man, it is unlikely that you can win, so it is best to go back, forcing them to separate and go one by one. Every fight is defined by who controls his time better. Zoro stood on guard and struck twice, Luffy did the same, both fought for a short time, no less than 10 minutes, however Luffy looked more tired. Time? Time is what is known as endurance. If you push yourself harder in a fight, you end up exhausting yourself, so your opponent will win. However, if both are on par in time, there is a 50% chance that you will win. Amazing, Luffy said, breathing heavily. Luffy and Zoro fought a little more, he giving him advice on his breathing and his blows. Little by little, what was at the beginning a fight where Zoro was leading the combat was turning into a slower and more precise fight. Therefore I assumed that Luffy had quickly learned the timing, and now he was adding kicks. Good, you learn fast, I want you to keep practicing. Good. What do you think? He has potential, and he learns quickly, Zoro said. We both watched as Luffy continued hitting the bag, now he looked much better. I think that's a skill, I see that it gives blows similar to yours. Some have skills like that, I know a guy who can knock you out with just one hit, Zoro commented. Luffy had good potential, with this he could do better in the next fight, however I was still worried. The fact that he fought against a rookie was no coincidence, they were studying him, and surely in the next fight someone more experienced would fight him. Luffy. Every morning before school, I would run with Robin through the streets to continue improving my endurance and breathing. In the afternoons after school, I would practice my punches with her. She would hold the bag and measure the timing, in addition to training with weights. The next fight was still a long way off, but we were fully prepared for that day. Are you feeling okay? Better than ever, I've never felt so strong, I said with a smile. We stopped at the park and bought some drinks. I'm glad to see you feel confident. I assure you that I will win the next fight without problems, I said with a confidence that I had never felt. Personally, I felt much better, my wounds healed, and my strength had increased quite a bit. The training and techniques that Zoro told me helped a lot. Don't underestimate your rivals either, that's a mistake that leads to defeat. But that said, I spent the last few days training, and only 2 days before the upcoming fight. I rested. I had to have the strength to be able to face my opponent. Welcome to Ragnarok, the participant Luffy, the rookie who gave the surprise the first day, today faces an opponent that everyone knows, someone whose fists are so lethal that they are electrifying. Without further ado, with you, Enel. Will he be my rival? This must be a joke. The tall guy, funny ears, we both walked to the center. This time there were bars that prevented us from leaving the place. I'll finish this in a few minutes. We both prepared ourselves. Robin had no information about the guy, I guess he didn't either, but first of all we agreed to save my new moves to give a surprise. Let the fight begin. Let's see if this is your size. I covered myself from the blow that was coming towards me, however a small electric shock ran through my body and I was pushed back. I quickly looked at my rival. I didn't have a weapon, but I felt a small electric touch. You're fast. I don't know what kind of trick this is, but I have to be careful, I don't want to lose, so I'll attack first. Chapter 8. Fist and Sweat. What was that? My killing blow, you were lucky. Luffy quickly evades his opponent's attacks, however Enel approaches at great speed. Luffy could not avoid stopping one of Enel's fists, however the electric sensation did not appear. Enel hit with his right hand, and then felt the electricity. Luffy pushed him and analyzed the situation briefly. Enel kicked, Luffy counterattacked with a punch to the face, however he was stopped. The electricity was more intense, but he noticed that he defended himself with his right arm. How complicated. Robin's POV. Luffy seemed more defensive than usual. Enel had something, that's for sure, however the crowd wouldn't allow him to stop the fight. All that remained was to wait for Luffy to emerge victorious. Watching the fight, Luffy evaded the blows coming from his right arm, attacking, but still avoiding touching that part. He must have realized that there is something that affects him there, or he is warned in any case. Then Enel managed to land a blow on Luffy's chest. He remained motionless, however with his hands he grabbed him by the head and headbutted him. Enel stepped back, however Luffy went straight and hit him twice. Enel stepped back a little more, Luffy took a step and turned around and kicked him. The contestant Luffy corners Enel against the wall, attacks with forceful blows. Enel has no way to defend himself. Luffy could emerge victorious in this fight. We're not done yet. Don't push yourself so hard, Luffy said, keeping his distance. Enel quickly went up to him. Luffy grabbed him by the arm and threw him against the wall. He quickly lashed out with punches. In a moment, Luffy fell to the ground. Participant Luffy falls, Enel lashes out with blows, and Luffy seems unable to defend himself. Enel was hitting Luffy and he didn't defend himself. When Enel seemed to give him the final blow, Luffy turned back, got up and hit Enel in the stomach. He took Enel's arm and made him hit himself. After that Luffy kicked him, leaving his rival on the ground. Now Luffy seems to be the definitive winner in this fight. Luffy looked exhausted. He had won, but it had cost him a lot. He walked with what strength he had left and we went to the locker room. The injuries were worse than he thought. He had won, but evidently the difficulties that came with this were too much. I laid Luffy on the stretcher and let him rest. Chapter 9. Inside. Luffy. The guy had something on his arm, hand, whatever, he was giving me small electric shocks and throwing me off focus. In the end I managed to win by hitting other parts of his body, however I took a lot of damage, even with the training I had with Zoro. The techniques I used weren't concrete, they were a lot of punches in the air and brute force that had nothing to do with what I learned. I was resting in the comfort of my home, Robin had prepared some food and we had lunch together. How did you feel? Better, my head still hurts, every time Enel hit me it was like touching a plug with a fork I said, while remembering the blows I received. It's good to know your sense of humor is still intact. Thank you. You know I think they're cheating in some way. I nodded at what Robin said. I know, I don't want to imagine what that guy, Lucci, is doing I commented. She and I thought a little about what we should do now, because things were more complicated. We must do something to compensate for that. I'll rest a little I said as I went to the couch. Good. Robin's pav. Zoro, your training paid off, but we'll need some more help after lunch and Luffy resting. I went to see Zoro to ask him my concerns about Luffy's abilities. Sure, what do you have in mind? I think something that makes Luffy stand out, his opponents have better skills, and he seems to lack one I mentioned. Zoro thought for a moment. I understand, I'll see what I can do. So he has some kind of secret weapon, maybe a stronger punch or a good kick. Those were good ideas, with that maybe Luffy could win this, the debt would be paid, and finally I could get rid of all these problems. I order it. Let me see Luffy, maybe he can think of something else Zoro said. Good. Luffy. How do you feel? Better I said standing up, stretched my body a little and looked at Zoro. You look very exhausted. I mentioned this, although I appeared to be a little strong, it was true that inside I felt exhausted. Enel, my rival really bothered me. I came for that very reason. Let's think about what skill you can develop, not cheating, but having some kind of secret weapon Zoro mentioned. I looked at him curiously. What's on your mind? Do things, observe and concentrate he said smiling. That. The second is more like something that is considered a type of state. What he said intrigued me quite a bit. State. Yes, every fighter, athlete or person has the possibility of entering a state, and an anime calls it the zone. I didn't know that Zoro had an otaku side, however I sat down to listen to him. Area? Yes, the state where the body and mind become one to bring out the greatest human potential. That sounded more like ultra super mega instinct. I was missing a 2P for that. He was talking a lot about that, skills where the body developed the limited potential we had. It was different from the 10% of the brain, which was a lie. We use more than that, and unconsciously. The point of all this was to skillfully use the strength of the body. It was concentration where the mind and body were one. You're good at observing, so we'll assume that point. Zoro taught me some moves, faster punches, but I had to pay attention to Zoro's base stance, how he extended his arm, and the rhythm and timing, things I wouldn't have noticed at first. What do you think? Zoro asked. I need to rest more before I start training. Okay, but keep that in mind he said, taking his things. Have you used that state? Zoro stopped. Chapter 10. In state. You're good at observing, so we'll assume that point. Zoro taught me some moves, faster punches, but I had to pay attention to Zoro's base stance, how he extended his arm, and the rhythm and timing, things I wouldn't have noticed at first. What do you think? Zoro asked. I need to rest more before I start training. Okay, but keep that in mind he said, taking his things. Have you used that state? Zoro stopped. Once, but it was something strange he said looking at the ceiling, thought for a moment, and then seemed to forget what we were talking about. How was it? A while ago, I faced a guy in a semi-professional fight, a pretty strong guy, however, as time went by my body felt lighter, little by little I was able to put up more of a fight, everything became slow, the screams of the people weren't there, it was just me and him, fighting a battle that seemed to never end. That explanation left me somewhat amazed. I never thought that Zoro had fought to such a great degree. I mean, he has his own training place. However, he doesn't look like someone so full of experience. Incredible. Then I was able to win that fight. I finished this one. So should I leave myself on the brink of death? I don't think it works that way. We both looked at each other, nodding at that point. Understand. At better, we'll work on other things later. Robin's pav. Luffy rested, ate, trained and so on for more than 2 weeks. Zoro and Luffy fought a couple of times. Luffy continued learning some movements. Can you do it? I think so, give me some time Luffy said, watching Zoro's movements. A rival won't give you time, you must be fast. Luffy stopped the blow. He used the same movement with which Zoro had attacked, however Zoro couldn't defend himself. Luffy stopped immediately. Chapter 11. The eyes. Of Luffy. Well done, how do you feel? Better, I think I did a good job I said drinking some water. He offered me another drink. You can say that, I actually want to understand something. I need you to see me again. Oh, yes I sat down and watched him. This punch, taekwondo technique, kick and use of mixed martial arts techniques, watch and do it. He did it slowly, then positioned himself in front of the bag and punched, followed by a kick. Good. Now you, he said. I stood up and sighed. I quickly hit the coast, followed by the kick. Zoro analyzed my attack, made a sign and I followed him. We both continued with that practice. He made the movement and I followed him. Robin's POV. I arrived home after school. Luffy was training or something like that. He had told me he would do all afternoon. I don't understand how I can grade all of this with so many things on my mind, I said, looking at the things I had to do through school. I arrived. How did it go? I asked Luffy when I saw that he had arrived. Zoro said I can use something in the last fight, although I don't really know why. Tell me, I said, heading into the kitchen to make some coffee. He said something about a state like entering the zone. He mentioned an I'm in between, whatever. It seems like I can copy the movements. He mentioned this one. He did a couple of movements to demonstrate it. That. He did 4 techniques and you can imitate them or at least copy them. I mentioned this one. But there's a problem with it. I thought about it for a moment, so there was a limitation on the part of the person I copied. Which? Imitating or copying some movement is at least amazing, however the problem that exists is that you depend on your own ability in terms of strength. Explain briefly. I don't understand. Kicking is something simple. Knowing how to kick a specific part of the body is something you can do if you copy, however the strength and how you kick is something that will depend entirely on your own ability. Luffy thought about it for a moment, however he smiled proudly and confidently in his strength. I understand, so I have to be stronger to be able to beat others. I just have to train more. Not only that, you must know that you can do it, otherwise it won't be of help but will be a problem. I understand. Well, I'll take a bath. Luffy sighed and went to the bathroom. Even though it was my bathroom he was heading to, I let him in. Of Luffy. While I was bathing, I thought about what Robin said. Being able to copy something is great, but it's useless if I'm limited by my own abilities. Imagine if I copy a punch with great force, but it's useless. I can't match the force. I still have to surprise you with that. I finished showering and went to the kitchen to prepare some dinner. Robin was working on her school papers. I decided to prepare dinner for the 2 of us. Even though I wasn't a good cook, I'm sure something that went well with coffee could help. It's Robin's favorite drink. At the end of it all, I found some toast and some jam. It's not a big dinner or anything, but hey, at least we won't starve to death. Do you want some help? Don't worry, rest. Today was a day full of training for you, Robin said, taking her cup and a slice of toast. Don't worry, you know I have resistance. Besides, it's all for the greater good, I said, taking a seat next to her. Speaking of which, I know it's not friendship you feel. I mean, I don't think that's the only thing you feel for you to go to these extremes, she mentioned. I smiled at what she said. The truth is that all this happened so fast that I hadn't even thought about what I felt. Well, I think it's time I told you, although given the point we're at, I suppose you should have already deduced what I think and feel, I explained without further ado. She looked at me with a serious expression. But we barely speak. I don't think you feel something as complex as love. I just love you, I said, smiling. Chapter 12. The Last Fight. Luffy's POV. While I was bathing, I thought about what Robin said. Being able to copy something is great, but it's useless if I'm limited by my own abilities. Imagine if I copy a punch with great force, but it's useless. I can't match the force. I still have to surprise you with that. I finished showering and went to the kitchen to prepare some dinner. Robin was working on her school papers. I decided to prepare dinner for the 2 of us. Even though I wasn't a good cook, I'm sure something that went well with the coffee could help. It's Robin's favorite drink. At the end of it all, I found some toast and some jam. It's not a big dinner or anything, but hey, at least we won't starve to death. Do you want some help? Don't worry, rest. Today was a day full of training for you, Robin said, taking her cup and a slice of toast. Don't worry, you know I have resistance. Besides, it's all for the greater good, I said, taking a seat next to her. Speaking of which, I know that it's not friendship that you feel. I mean, I don't think that's the only thing you feel for you to go to these extremes, she mentioned. I smiled at what she said. The truth is that all this happened so fast that I hadn't even thought about what I felt. Well, I think it's time I told you, although given the point we're at, I suppose you should have already deduced what I think and feel, I explained without further ado. She looked at me with a serious expression. But we barely speak. I don't think you feel something as complex as love. I just love you, I said, smiling. Robin's POV. Love? It's a difficult thing to understand. I've never felt love as such. I've felt appreciation and admiration, but never anything like love. Last fight. How do you feel? Luffy sighed and stood up. He looked at his rival, Lucci the Strongest, a fight that would decide the payment of the debt or the sentence for it. I hope to win this, so I can be with you. You already are, just give it your best, I told him, smiling. Hey, if I win, can I give you a kiss? I blushed slightly upon hearing his comment. Chapter 13. Surrender. Of Luffy. The fight began, my opponent was ready, despite being thin he was in shape, for my part the months I had trained I would say favored me to have a decent body. The Ragnarok fight, Luffy vs Lucci, undefeated champion, can the rookie win? The fight started when the bell rang, Lucci didn't hesitate and went straight for Luffy, a kick which the young man quickly dodged, Lucci didn't back down and attacked with a series of blows against Luffy, who could only defend himself. When he could, he moved away to get some distance, his opponent was fast and he couldn't keep up, however he remained calm at all times. What's wrong? You don't look so cocky. I admit that you are fast and Lucci hit Luffy, he didn't see his rival's attack coming, he quickly reacted and defended himself from the series of blows that Lucci attacked him. You'll never win this fight, when you lose I'll make Robin work for me. Luffy tried to land a punch, however Lucci stopped his fist and attacked him with a series of punches that made Luffy fall to his knees. She is a beautiful woman, she will be very welcome in my brothel. Of Luffy. She is a beautiful woman, she will be very welcome in my brothel. A near-death experience, at least that's how I interpret that state, my body pushed to the limit to win this fight, so without further ado, I'll let my body be the one who guides. Lucci hit me, he had much superior strength, let's see if I can match him. Incredible, fighter Luffy has landed a blow on the champion. I breathed quickly, I had to stay calm, there was still a long way to go before I could beat him, but this blow would make him stand still for a moment. His punch was in slow motion, I was able to evade it, attack, keep dodging and keep hitting, I can do it. Participant Luffy attacks with a series of punches, it seems the fight is becoming equal. Lucci deflected my arm and spun around and elbowed me. I lost focus but was able to better understand his attacks. His punch was deflected and I spun around to elbow him, Lucci stood for a moment processing what he had done. What's wrong? Have you never bled before? I said smiling, Lucci smiled and breathed slowly. You're more skilled than I thought. We both faced each other in a fight, I evaded the blows and then attacked with the same intensity, the more time passed the more I could copy each of his movements. Lucci kicked, however I managed to dodge it, I kicked his leg and managed to knock him to the ground, without thinking I lunged at him. However I was thrown against the other side, I stood up and looked, Lucci seemed different, it seemed like his aura had changed to a heavier one. By real form, I will finish you. Lucci was faster now, Luffy followed his movements trying to adapt to his rival's speed, however he was receiving more hits than he could give. Lucci increased the pace of the fight, the fighter Luffy can only take hits, will this be the end? For a moment Luffy managed to evade a blow, Lucci watched as Luffy now seemed to match his speed, receiving one blow followed by another, as he defended himself with his arms he was attacked by a knee to the stomach, he bent slightly, but Luffy grabbed him by his hair, angrily giving him a festival of fists to his face, Lucci was not far behind, and lashed out with blows. This is unusual, both combatants have stopped and decided to hit each other. Both were hitting each other non-stop, neither of them decided to dodge, it was a war of blows to see who would fall, Lucci didn't even flinch from the blows. What's up? Are you tired already? Luffy was breathing heavily, he looked at Lucci who put two fists in front of him, bewildered Luffy reacted too late. Rakishiki. Rakugan, a very fierce impact pierced Luffy's body, he spat out blood and bowed to Lucci. I won this fight. Luffy stood up and put his fists in front of Lucci, he was surprised, but before Luffy did anything, he quickly took a step back. Luffy quickly took a step and kicked. Luffy quickly struck, despite the damage he continued fighting, Lucci understood that he only wanted to distract him, his ability was not one that could be copied so easily. You tricked me, Lucci slammed his knee into Luffy's stomach, after a while Luffy returned the attack. You're just a monkey imitating me. I can still fight, Luffy said with his weak voice, bleeding and injured, the blows and the rhythm he has copied have worn him down a lot, Lucci for his part was still strong enough to continue. This is the difference between us, Lucci lashed out with a punch, Luffy hit the wall, quickly hugged Lucci and spun him around, throwing him against the wall. Rakugan Lucci felt the impact of his own technique, the audience was surprised. Luffy stepped back in pain, having used the same technique made his arms ache. Despite the impact of that attack, Lucci still had the strength to fight. Angry at seeing that someone had imitated his technique, he quickly went against Luffy, grabbing him by the hair and throwing him to the ground. Luffy quickly grabbed his leg and yanked him down. Lucci quickly kicked him and stepped back. Lucci kept attacking with his fists, Luffy quickly evaded and attacked, the fight became a rhythm which Luffy was controlling. And Lucci kept attacking and Luffy kept dodging, using the copy of his movements he kept hitting him. Incredible, the participant Luffy has turned the fight around, for the first time Lucci finds himself cornered. Despite his exhaustion, Luffy continued to observe. Every detail was crucial to being able to imitate his opponent. Lucci began to feel the blows getting stronger and stronger. He felt like the fight was becoming different from how it had started. He was no longer fighting a rookie, he was fighting against himself. What's going on? Participant Luffy has evaded every attack from his opponent, but he's bleeding. Robin's POV. Luffy was putting up a fight far beyond my expectations. He had started with a pace that Lucci had mastered. After a while Luffy adjusted to it and attacked. Lucci increased his speed and took control of the fight. Luffy managed to adjust and continue fighting. He's overexerting himself, Zoro said. We both watched as Luffy managed to imitate Lucci's technique, however we knew that it had caused damage to his arms. What's going on? Participant Luffy has evaded every attack from his opponent, but he's bleeding. We were both alerted by what the narrator had said. Luffy looked like he had received severe damage to his eyes, he was shedding blood. What's wrong with him? Now I understand, it's not that he's imitating, he's actually copying his opponent, Zoro said worriedly. That? His eyes, his talent, he is copying in detail every blow of his opponent, every movement, even that technique, that is his ability. I looked at Luffy, who was now receiving blows from Lucci. What will happen if it continues like this? I don't know, but whatever it is affecting him, he has to stop, his eyes can't stand to copy so much. Luffy stepped back, and despite what was happening to him he continued hitting. What's wrong, can't you see me anymore? Lucci dodged Luffy's attacks, despite the damage and being at his limit, he took a deep breath and went towards Luffy. Rakushiki. Rakugan. Luffy received that attack again, the public shouted with euphoria, the present fight had exceeded all expectations, shouts from the stand supporting each man. Luffy fell to his knees. Lucci looked at his opponent, there was no sign that Luffy could recover, his eyes were bleeding, and he spat a little blood. Lucci smiled and assumed his victory, but he did not want to be confident and looked at Robin, pointed at him, and with a macabre smile, turned to where Luffy. He clenched his fist, the final blow, impacted his blow against Luffy's face, however Luffy's hand grabbed his hair. Finally I found you. Luffy lashed out with blows against his opponent. Lucci, bewildered, began to feel the effects of his techniques, however he knew that Luffy had to fall first. He endured each blow and tried to respond, however Luffy did not stop hitting him. The fight has changed now, Luffy attacks hit after hit and Lucci can't do anything. Of Luffy. Everything is very dark, I can't think or see anything, I only know that I'm hitting, I'm not going to stop unless I hear that I've won. I've never had very strong motives other than to continue as I wish, however when I met Robin, I don't know if it was love at first sight, but I could see her, a direct and sincere woman, I don't want her to continue in this problem. I will fight until the end, no matter if I have to give my life. I just want her to smile. I can still see my right eye, can still see, I have Lucci in front of me receiving my blows, my body is about to give way, I have received 2 hits, and I know that they have done a lot of damage, I keep fighting because I refuse to stop. He's falling, damn him. Lucci is still at his limit. If his techniques hurt me, the same will happen to him. Even blind and shivering, I won't stop fighting. Ah. I screamed loudly, I released my opponent, and with one hit after another I took him to the wall. If I stop I won't be able to move, I will continue hitting until I can't anymore. For a moment everything went blank, hoping this was over, I raised my fist hoping to find something, there was nothing, I don't know, I think I'm blind. The winner is my body is at its limit, I don't know how much internal damage I have, I feel like I'm going to explode, I'm standing if I am, at least if I die it won't be on my knees. Robin. The words that came out of Luffy, who was standing in the combat arena, had managed to stay in the center, he was not looking anywhere, his eyes had no vision of anything. Luffy, standing before all the spectators, did not know what was happening. Lucci walks weakly, it seems like the fight is about to end, the narrator said. Lucci walked with his face covered in blood, clenching his fist he went straight to his opponent, however, as he took a step he fell to the ground, the narrator started a countdown. Wait, Lucci seems to be getting up, can he go on? Lucci was a few steps away from Luffy, yet his body wasn't responding. He stared down at his opponent from the ground, Luffy standing with his fist raised, just one punch away from being on the other side. Lucci was motionless, in the eyes of the public he was the defeated one, the narrator watched as he lay lying down, Lucci unable to move any part of his body, he tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't respond, conscious but unable to scream that he was still there. On the other hand, Luffy was blind due to his maximum effort, conscious to some extent of breathing. Participant Luffy has spit up some blood, Lucci is still on the ground just steps away from his opponent, the counter has started. 15 seconds 10 seconds Luffy took a small step. The winner is Luffy. The entire audience shouted with excitement, Luffy had won. Lucci watched as his opponent showed a small smile, he knew it. Robin's POV. The debt was paid, even the profits from the fight went to us. Luffy was taken to the infirmary and treated by special doctors along with Lucci. A splendid fight indeed, except our gift. Lucci's companions gave me some things from my old friend. Thank you. We'll take Lucci with us, we'll cover whatever expenses Luffy needs, Lucci's companions said. Come on Robin, I think Luffy has woken up. Chapter 14. Free. Robin's Pav. Luffy had woken up after a long time of rest, however waking up is a word, since the fact was that he could not see anything. What am I drinking? It's very bitter, Luffy said as he carefully drank the contents of the cup. Cafe. Oh, I don't like it, he said, maybe I should have put a little sugar in it. And you are? Me too, he said quickly. How are my eyes doing? I asked, somewhat intrigued by the condition of his eyes. In a few days you can take off the blindfold. Luffy wanted to take off the blindfold, however the doctor said that he had been badly damaged, however he had been freed from the risk of going blind. You know, I would have been sad if they had told me I would go blind. I guess it's something no one wants, although I've heard of a girl who fights even though she's blind, but why do you mention it? I mentioned, apparently in this place people fight even despite any difficulty or disability. Well, if I couldn't see, I wouldn't be able to see how beautiful you are all the time. Did you blush? Yes I did, but I wasn't going to tell him that, even though I couldn't see his face, I knew he was amused by the comments I was making. Just rest. Hey Robin, I really like you, but I'd like to know what you feel. I'm a bit older than you, Luffy, I'm truly grateful for what you did, but it's still my fault that you're there in that bed injured, and with the blindfold on. Luffy remained thoughtful for a moment after what I said, however he insisted on something. But I decided that I wanted to fight for you, well, so they leave you alone, but it doesn't change the fact that I've liked you since the first day I met you. If this was a declaration, it wasn't the time or the place to do it. You're still a young Luffy, strong and with extraordinary abilities, but you must understand that love is something complex, you can't just say it that way, you have to really understand what you feel. I hoped that my explanation could dissuade him, however it was something he told me almost all the time, so I wouldn't have to think too much about it. My feelings are somewhat complex to reduce them to always me too. I'm sure I love her. Why does it seem so easy to say? Rest. I decided to let Luffy rest. In the hallways Zoro was arriving. What are you doing here? I came to see your beloved, he said in a mocking tone. It's not. Yes, it seems like it will get better soon, I mentioned looking at him from the door. Yes, the doctor said it would be okay for me to come home in a few days. That's good, I've never been a fan of being in hospitals, I said looking at the place, it brought back certain memories that I didn't like. Same here, fine, I just came to leave you some food. Thanks for the help, I told him before he left. You're welcome, he's a good guy, any person in love does stupid things, but he's on another level. He mentioned this, I thought about it for a moment and asked. Do you think he's in love? Yes, it's obvious, although I can't say the same about you, I mentioned, referring to the fact that he didn't seem to feel the same way about the young man lying with a blindfold on in that room. It's complicated, I admire what he did, but I don't know if I can say that I feel love. You should resolve that, a broken heart is something that has no cure, besides, I consider that even with a negative answer, that boy over there will be there for you, but it would not be good to give him the illusion that one day he will be reciprocated. Zoro's words took from my head the small intention of doing that last thing, but still my ethics would not allow me to take advantage of that young man, who already gave a lot of himself for me. Understand? Of Luffy. I don't know when, but one day I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was simply at Robin's house, eating peacefully. The bandage would soon be removed. I even practiced walking a little, guided by my ear, but I wasn't very successful. Nevertheless, I was happy because we were now free. Chapter 15. The answer. Robin's Pav. This is why the date was changed, because of the events of King Cobra, history underwent a change. Well, with that said, you can go and remember to do the research assignments, I said, ending my class when I heard the bell. Everyone went out to have breakfast, Luffy did the same, in the end I would see him in the cafeteria. While enjoying my coffee, I wondered what to say about Luffy's feelings. I wasn't obligated to reciprocate, but I didn't want to sound like a hypocrite considering everything I'd done. Still, I doubted whether Luffy's feelings were actually true love or just a physical attraction. It was something I had to clarify. Robin, can I sit down? I nodded instinctively. Luffy, of course, I said, seeing him a little doubtful. I sighed and enjoyed his company. It feels weird going back to school after what happened. I know, however we have to get back to the routine. How do you feel? Luffy smiled, he looked much better now without all those bandages. Better, even stronger than before. He mentioned this with a smile, typical of his person to whom I have become quite accustomed. Thinking a little about what he would do about his feelings, I thought of something that would truly make his position clear to me. By the way, Luffy, I want you to come to my apartment when classes are over. Sure. We both finished our breakfast and went back to class. Luffy's Pav. There was a gym, so while I was starting my stretches some classmates were meeting up. I didn't give it much thought and finished my stretches. But this I finish. Come on Kobe, you can do it. I approached to see the origin of so much scandal. What are you doing? I asked one of the boys, who pointed to a boy climbing the rope. Kobe tries to climb the rope. What's so amazing about that? That's when I noticed something on the ground. See for yourself. Did they take his pants off? One group laughed a little louder than the others. I had to assume they were the ones causing all this. Yes, it was Helmeppo. Almost there, Kobe. Kobe was about to reach something on the rope but ended up falling. Apparently they threw his wallet too. Ha ha ha. Are you okay? I helped him up. Hey, don't ruin our fun, said a blonde guy a little taller than me. Bellamy, it seems this guy is bothering us. Let's settle this like real students, Bellamy said with a smile. How? I asked with annoyance. Ready? Burnt. Kobe along with other guys were on a team, while on the other side Bellamy along with Helmeppo, the guy who bothered Kobe a lot. Thanks for the help. You're welcome. The game started and the balls hit two of our team, Kobe, a girl named Piece and I were left. That was easy. They're going to defeat us, Kobe said, covering himself with the ball. Piece on his side picked up the balls. There you go, sheepface. I hit another boy. Apparently he wanted to aim at Bellamy. He got upset and threw the ball with great force, however I stopped it before it hit Piece. That's the attitude, little one. Don't call me little one, I smiled and quickly threw the ball, eliminating another of Bellamy's team, 3 against 3. Kobe took strength and threw the ball, however Helmeppo dodged it and returned the attack with force. Piece boldly tried to catch the ball. To our luck, it didn't hit any of them. Don't worry, guys. I grabbed the ball and threw it, hitting Helmeppo in the face. Bellamy quickly responded by throwing the ball, but I stopped it with my palm. I braced myself for the attack, but Bellamy was strong. Take this. Without realizing it, his partner called Kuro. However, Kobe threw himself, receiving the impact of the ball. His glasses broke due to the impact. Kobe. He fell to the ground. I approached him to help him. Chapter 16. And it's a yes or a no. Luffy. Are you okay? Yes, thank you, no one has ever helped me, Kobe said in a weak tone. I helped him get up so he could leave the field. And me? Piece said while dodging some balls. Thanks anyway, Piece. Don't worry, I'll beat those fools, I said to Kobe as I watched him go to the seats next to the others who were receiving him. I never cared about the hierarchy of popularity. I don't know which one I belong to. I don't care about any of them, but something about these kids made me feel something. Why should the strong be the ones who humiliate the weak? It shouldn't be this way. The strong should protect them, guide them and be a beacon of help for them. We're waiting, don't be dramatic. If you can do something good for others, you have a moral obligation to do it. Okay, Piece, pass me the ball. There it goes, I took it and squeezed it. Quick shot, pistol. I shouted, hitting Kuro. Fine, are you giving up? Bellamy took the ball, angrily looked at me. No way, he said, blocking the ball's attack with another one. Piece, I asked him to pick up another one, however Bellamy targeted it. Careful. Piece couldn't dodge the ball, but he still stood up and raised his thumb. I'm fine, just beat the fool. Can you throw a ball, silly? Bellamy mocked. Sure, I took the ball and waited for my moment. Bellamy blocked my attacks, we were both focused. I quickly took advantage of an opportunity to try to eliminate him, however Bellamy jumped and with a spin threw the ball with all his strength. Great bounce, Bellamy. Everyone was surprised, however I had anticipated something similar. With the other ball I threw it with all my strength. Do I know how to throw a ball? I said before the ball hit Bellamy's face. He fell to the ground, everyone was surprised, some astonished, but my group was very happy that he had defeated the school bully. Hey Luffy, thanks for what you did, Kobe said after that game ended. That was great, Bellamy had dodged the ball, but you reacted faster and bred. His face turned red, Piece said excitedly. You're welcome, I hope he doesn't mess with you. I hope so, even so, I'm not that afraid of him anymore, Piece laughed at what Kobe said. Don't lie, Kobe, you still get scared when I name him. Kobe was embarrassed and chased Piece. Piece. It was a joke. By the way, are you guys doing anything this weekend? Why don't we go out? Piece asked excitedly. Claro, Luffy. Let's see, I don't have much to do, shall we go to the video games? Kobe said, suggesting a plan for the weekend. Sounds great, give me your numbers, Piece commented, taking out his cell phone. Okay, see you then. When I got home, I dropped off my things and took a shower to freshen up. I went to the kitchen and made myself something. I also thought about making something for Robin. I made a nice meal. But that done, I packed everything and went to Robin's apartment. She let me in, she was reading some school books. What do you bring here? Some food for you, I said happily. Thank you. So, what did you want to talk about? I asked, taking a seat on the couch in Robin's living room. Well, first of all, it's so I can answer the feelings you've told me, she responded in a zero tone, which is why I had to sit properly. I don't know why, but seeing her in a very serious way gave me a certain chill, however I couldn't stop appreciating how beautiful she looked. Yes, I love you. Because? I don't know, I just love you, I replied sincerely. She sighed. Even if I said I didn't feel the same, I wouldn't stop talking to her or being who I am. However, my surprise was different. Chapter 17. Love. Luffy's pav. What do you bring here? Some food for you, I said happily. Thank you. So, what did you want to talk about? I asked, taking a seat on the couch in Robin's living room. Well, first of all, it's so I can give you an answer to the feelings you've told me, she responded in a zero tone, which is why I had to sit properly. I don't know why, but seeing her in a very serious way gave me a certain chill, however I couldn't stop appreciating how beautiful she looked. Yes, I love you. Because? I don't know, I just love you, I replied sincerely. She sighed. Even if I said I didn't feel the same, I wouldn't stop talking to her or being who I am. However, my surprise was different. Robin approached me, and that made me very nervous. It wasn't the fact that she walked towards me with a more sensual bearing, but the fact that while she did so, she took off her glasses, her hair loose, because she removed the elastic that held it. A sensation I had never experienced before made itself present as I saw that she was getting closer and closer to me. Robin. She moved the chair so I was standing in front of her. She placed her finger on my lips, silencing any words that might come out of my mouth. Her eyes looked beautiful, but my body was on end. She leaned close to my ear, and I managed to hear her whisper. Do you want to see where this goes? Hey? She surrounded my body with her hands. I felt a strange sensation, a shiver passed through me, however I did nothing, I was enjoying it. Robin. Yes. She came closer, didn't let me finish and gave me a kiss. Feeling her lips was the softest and most tender sensation I had ever felt. The emotion made my heart beat quickly, and without knowing what to do I just put my hands on her. She moved them to her waist, placing herself on top of me. Chapter 18. Passion. Wanna see where this goes? Huh? She surrounded my body with her hands. I felt a strange sensation, a shiver passed through me, however I did nothing, I was enjoying it. Robin. Yes. She came closer, didn't let me finish and gave me a kiss. Feeling her lips was the softest and most tender sensation I had ever felt. The emotion made my heart beat quickly, and without knowing what to do I just put my hands on her. She moved them to her waist, placing herself on top of me. Lemon skipped. Believe it or not, experience is stronger than youth, she said smiling. Let's check it out, I smiled as I leaned back a little. She took my member in her hand and brought it to her mouth. Chapter 19. Formal relationship. Robin's pav. I woke up the next morning, still exhausted from all the action we had last night. It was as if I had drunk the best beer and had a party impossible to remember. Luffy? When I turned to look at him, he was asleep. We were still naked, so I assumed we had slept that way. I sighed and looked at him, sleeping peacefully. I hadn't imagined that a young man like him had so much energy. Despite his innocence, he was considerably good in bed, nothing that time can't help improve. His arms took me and hugged me. He was still asleep, but I decided not to wake him up and curl up on top of him. Luffy. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, I only know that I had Robin in my arms. She woke up too, and I felt a little embarrassed because we were both naked. Good afternoon, Robin said with a smile. Hello. What's up? We were a little closer yesterday, and you didn't seem so embarrassed, she commented jokingly with a beautiful smile. Well, it's just that now I'm colder, I said somewhat nervously. Understand. What am I supposed to say now? I asked looking at her. She smiled and kissed me. Nothing, this is where I tell you that I will reciprocate your feelings. Really? I asked excitedly upon hearing Robin's words. Well, I thought about it a lot before coming to this. I thought you'd say no, I had prepared myself for this moment. I considered it, but I guess I said it because I don't want to feel betrayed or lose something that I consider valuable to me, she told me, placing her hand on my cheek. Am I valuable to you? I hesitated for a moment. You are. You are for me too. Chapter 20. Final. Luffy. So are we a couple? I asked Robin again, who was cooking something. And? It's nice to hear it from you. With a smile I got up from my seat and hugged him from behind. Don't be so cheesy. Just for you, I said, whispering in his ear. Oh, okay. Where are we going next? I asked, somewhat intrigued, after we finished our meal. I think we could go out later, she commented, serving the food on the table. A date? Yes, basically, she exclaimed, taking a seat. I like the idea. Luffy, I know you are a very cheerful person, but in the eyes of others we are certainly peculiar. The atmosphere became a little serious. Could that be a bad thing? Because of age? A little, yes, but believe me, despite that, I like you. A small bump was present in my heart. I couldn't help but smile at what he had said. Same here, I would never find someone better than you. You are unique, I said, smiling happily, looking at my beautiful Robin. Unique? Yes, that's why I love you, I exclaimed with joy. Every time I saw her she was a delight to my eyes. Now that we are a couple I need to know some things, she commented with a serious tone. Like what? Well, first of all, you live alone, that means someone has to pay for the place where you live, she commented, somewhat intrigued. I thought for a moment and answered. Oh, sure. So? I raise an eyebrow. Well, my grandfather is the one who pays for everything for me to study, but the place belongs to a mutual friend, Makino. I explained how everything was related to my home. Amiga. Chapter 21. Family, Second Arc. Luffy's POV. Well, my grandfather is the one who pays for everything for me to study, but the place belongs to a mutual friend, Makino explained how everything was related to my home. Friend? Yes, she used to take care of me with Ace when we were little. She was like a mother, a babysitter, although I've never called her mom now that I remember. So she's like a babysitter. I wouldn't say it that way, she was like part of the family, I explained. Makino was a kind person, I never saw her angry, although only once did she worry too much because we escaped with Sabo. Understand? That's right, luckily for us she never bothered us, even though we were naughty. She was a smiling angel. When I remembered her I couldn't help but smile, especially because she was an important part of my life and my childhood. Even now I wish I could send her a message to find out how she was doing. Although I don't know if she always stayed with Shanks, I always thought they had something between them. Although Robin didn't know who she was talking about, Shanks was like an older brother or the cool uncle, inspiring me to follow what my heart dictated. You're full of surprises. I guess I shouldn't hide things like that. You're my partner now, I mentioned with a smile. She responded in the same way. Don't go so fast, it's not like we're going to get married anytime soon. That left me thoughtful. I looked at him somewhat confused about it. Oh, marry? Yes, you know, what follows after a period of relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend is marriage, she explained with a certain smile. That was like an incredible revelation, because I always thought that friendship and courtship were the pinnacle of relationships. I thought that her being my girlfriend was enough. Wow. You didn't know? I asked in surprise, her face showing that impression of surprise upon learning that I was in fact unaware of the subject in question. Well, I've never thought about it, I explained with a smile. Oh well, neither do I, but the knowledge exists and I had to know it, she mentioned, which made me understand that in part what we had was only new to me. Aren't I your first relationship? Luffy, I'm 27 years old, I'm almost 30, I've lived a few more years than you, so yes, I've dated other people. However, the fact that I'm single is a sign that none of those relationships worked out, although what he had mentioned was to make me feel better. In part it bothered me a bit because other men were close to a woman as beautiful and special as Robin. Even with that, things didn't work out. Isn't it enough to just love her? I see. Jealous. I shook my head a little. Not at all, it's just hard to believe that no one wanted to stay with you. You're an extraordinary woman. Robin turned away after having told her that. I thought that maybe it wasn't a compliment worthy of her. What's wrong? You're red. Nothing, she mentioned with a blush on her cheek. I smiled and laughed slightly. Well, I guess I have to get to work on my homework. A certain teacher is very demanding about that, I commented while I went for my things. She laughed, understanding what I meant. It's for your own good, behave well and you'll surely be rewarded. Meanwhile, I slept well. Should we get something to eat? Said a young man with black hair, striking freckles, and adjusting his hat. I think it would be better if we brought food for him, his blonde companion replied. They both smiled and started walking. It's true, knowing him, his room must be a mess, the black-haired man commented while laughing. I don't think so, he's changed much, and I'm sure being alone has made him more responsible. Am I laughing now? I asked again. They both looked at each other and nodded. Yeah. Ha. Well, what do we take to Luffy? The black-haired man asked with a smile. Anything that has meat, you know that's the only thing he loves, the blonde answered. Chapter 22. Brothers. Of Ace. My name is Ace, port is D Ace, I'm 23 years old and I'm a lazy bum. Well, I just spend my time traveling around, my job, well, usually that's done by Sabo, my brother. We both traveled from our hometown to visit our younger brother. Luffy was a student and Grandpa left him a good amount of money so he could live, study, and become a successful man after graduating from college. For our part, we weren't successful. We just worked hard enough to live the way we wanted. Aren't you hungry? A little, but we have to take something to Luffy, Sabo commented with concern because Luffy undoubtedly had only meat and noodles in his refrigerator. Okay, let's get him something to eat. What do you think he's doing at home? I asked Sabo, who was putting the food in the bag we had bought. Probably a student and doing his homework, he answered, looking at me with some seriousness. Good joke, do you think he's watching some series we recommended? I laughed at that because Luffy and books didn't get along. Last time I recommended one to you, Sabo commented with a smile. Yes, but the fool got confused, he had to watch Euphoria on HBO, not that and I'm one. His face when he started seeing that, we shouldn't do that again although it was fun, Luffy threw up a lot that time. We still bothered him with it. Boku no Pico? No, I don't see ice cream the same way because of that, Sabo exclaimed with annoyance, since it was one of my recommendations at the beginning, however Luffy had never seen it or suffered it. Okay, but let's record his reaction. Of Sabo. My name is Sabo, I am Ace and Luffy's brother. One day I arrived at their house after escaping from mine, and Garp and Makino adopted me as such. Garp is a great person, he is our grandfather, strict, and whose way of showing affection is by hitting. Makino was like our mother, a friend who always looked after us along with another woman named Dayton. She was a bitter old woman who grew up among a world of men who taught her to be strong and defend herself. She didn't teach me how to fight. Ace knows how to fight hand to hand and with some short-range weapons, while I can defend myself with kicks and longer weapons. The only one who trained irregularly was Luffy, but we knew he had good fighting potential. All three of us are very strong because of all this. What if he has a girl? I asked Ace. We were walking a few blocks from the apartment complex where our younger brother lived. It's Luffy. When he saw Makino and Shanks kiss he thought she was fighting and wanted to see if Makino was strong. We both laughed at that event. For Luffy it was fighting Makino, for us it was the third failed attempt of someone wanting to kiss her. That's true, but she's a teenager now, she's probably thought about that before. I answered a little more seriously, even though I was a fool, even we went through that, it wasn't a bad experience, but we definitely felt like fools when we tried to get a girl into bed. Whatever, the worst that can happen is we find him masturbating or something. We went up to the place and took the elevator. We walked a bit and ended up where he was supposed to live. Yeah, well, what does it matter, is it here? We were in front of the door. Yeah, shall we play? I asked Ace, who shook his head in response. No, hey Luffy, we're here. To our surprise, the image we had of Luffy was even worse. Well, it depends on how you look at it. For us, Luffy was mostly an innocent fool, however, he knew about more complex things, like knowing what he wanted and what he desired. However, those ambitions seemed somewhat distant to him, so he decided to study to better understand what he wanted. We thought it was that journey of improvement, one where you explore the greatness of life and decide which path to take. It was as if you were setting sail to sea in search of something you don't know if it's there, but in the end, what counts is the journey, the experience, and everything you live. I probably think about it a lot and leave the intrigue of what my eyes saw after the door opened. What the buck? Ace shouted, dropping the bag of food, and for my part I was surprised. I was certainly expecting anything but what my eyes saw. Ace? Sabo? He looked at us in surprise when we walked in unannounced. Luffy? Ace shouted when he saw him. Luffy, I sighed, putting my hand on my head. Ace was upset or something like that. I just held back my laughter. Luffy, said the woman who was in the 4 position on the couch while Luffy was bucking her. Chapter 23. Explanations. Of Luffy. I can explain. No need, I don't want details, Ace said with some annoyance on his face. I didn't expect their visit, but now that they were there, I could only have my face of shame for everything that had happened. What's it called? Naiko Robin, she said, answering Sabo's question. Nice to meet you, we're sorry to meet. At an awkward moment, a small silence filled the living room of my apartment. After a while everything calmed down. Excuse me, I had no idea Luffy would have visitors. Luffy, you didn't leave out the fact that we're brothers, right? I smiled nervously at that. Oh well, the thing is that the subject hadn't come up. I understand. So you're a couple? Sabo asked, pointing at us. We both looked at each other for a moment and nodded. And? I know I shouldn't care much, on the contrary I feel happy, but aren't you? That old Ace questioned a little about Robin's appearance. I must say that indeed she was. She wasn't a woman who could be called young, however for me those aspects didn't matter much. Yes, that's how it is. I understand, Ace, I want a drink. Sabo also didn't seem interested in that. I don't have any alcohol here. And I didn't want to come in and see them having hex, Ace said angrily, getting up and going to my kitchen to get something to drink. With all due respect, it's Luffy's house or apartment, Robin mentioned. Sabo looked at Ace, and he just let out a sigh. True, it's still not an image I want to have in my head. Understand. How long have you been dating? Sabo asked in an anxious and intrigued tone. If he told them the whole story, they probably wouldn't believe it. It's a long story. I love stories, start at the beginning, Ace exclaimed, who had returned with a soda in hand. Well, it all starts when. Did you fight in a fight club called Ragnarok? Ace said, not believing everything I had told him, from when I met Robin until now that we are a couple. And? Leave that, I won, Sabo mentioned, excited and happy for me. Barely, if you had seen how I left the other guy, I mentioned smiling, we both bumped fists. Luffy, although your intentions were good, with all due respect to the lady present, risking yourself to the point of almost dying is not something that Grandpa Ace commented somewhat thoughtfully about the club issue and how I got involved in it. On the contrary, I would be buying him whatever he wants. Sabo on the other hand was agreeing with me, although none of them understood that I did everything out of love. It was enough for me that they didn't retort in my face many of the things that grandfather would say. Sabo Ace sighed, annoyed, perhaps because I wasn't supporting him in what he assumed was a scolding for me. Sorry, I mean, I win a fight, and on top of that look at him, he seems to have trained a lot, he looks in good shape. I looked at my body, as if it had never been in good shape. I can't handle you too, Ace said, sighing. Yes. Robin. I looked at her, who laughed for no reason. Excuse me, you are certainly a very curious family. It is a pleasure to meet Luffy's brothers, although not in the best conditions, and the first impression, well, it was not a very pleasant one. The three of us laughed lightly, although we started off on the wrong foot. Without a doubt now things had taken a much calmer and more appropriate course. Well, at least I know I'm helping a good person, Ace said more calmly. By the way, Sabo, Ace, what brings you here? I asked my brother. Well, we wanted to visit you, we have a vacation, and we wanted to come and see how you were. He mentioned this with a smile. Great. During all this time, we enjoyed the food they brought us in peace. I was happy that my brothers had come to visit me, and even more so knowing that they had accepted Robin as my partner. Chapter 24. Unfinished Business. Robin's POV. Wait, Ace stopped after a long while, realizing my profession and how I met Luffy. What's happening? Are you her teacher? I asked, concluding after that. Yes, I am, I mentioned with a slight smile. Luffy. Things happened, I'm not guilty of that, this nervous man commented under the serious look of his brother. Sabo laughed a little until something changed in the atmosphere. I didn't know what happened, or rather, I don't know what was going on. Sabo looked towards the door. Ace spoke. Yes, but this is very. He didn't finish his sentence until the door swung open. Ace. Sabo quickly stood up and Luffy hugged me, covering me from whatever was happening. Robin. What's going on? I asked, upset by the situation. 4 people came in, and of all of them, I recognized one. We meet again, Luffy. Who are you? Sabo asked. The person who had broken into the house was Lucci, along with 3 other guys. What are you doing here? Robin doesn't owe you anything anymore, Luffy mentioned angrily. Lucci walked towards him, and the brothers covered him. I'm not here for her, I'm here for revenge. What are you talking about? Ace asked, confused. Oh, do you think I'll let my pride be trampled on by a brat? Luffy, who is this guy? Sabo asked while clenching his fist. Lucci, the guy I kicked in the ass. Want a rematch? Get rid of your helpers. I'm not a stray, I formally challenge you to a duel. In 4 days he handed him a leaflet. Huh? I only fought to pay off Robin's debt, I won't put on a show just because, Luffy said, crumpling up the paper and throwing it to the floor. You will. Does the name Makino ring a bell? Bastard. Ace went towards Lucci, who kicked him, and Sabo. 4 days, you better find more people, I want you to be at your best for the final. Luffy. What does this mean? Sabo asked after that tense moment. Luffy and I didn't know where to start. Damn, that guy won't leave me alone. I'm leaving this. Ace picked up the brochure and the 4 of us read what it was about. Side-eye tournament. It's a tournament of clandestine arts, the best of the worst criminals meet, Robin commented looking at that paper. Ace sighed and took a seat. No way, we have to go to that. Robin looked at him at what he said. Wait, are you going to fight? Sabo and Ace smiled. Despite having received a kick from Lucci, Ace and Sabo were very strong. We have no choice, besides these tournaments are tricky, he probably won't play fair. No, Lucci may be whatever they want, but he is someone who keeps his word. He could have come when Luffy was hurt, but I wait. He threw down the challenge and he will keep his word, but the tournament brings together the best of the worst in scum. It won't be easy, Robin commented. His words didn't make us back down, on the contrary, they made us more united and determined to fight for it. I need more people. Robin's POV. Fight. You trained me, we needed your help. We had asked Zoro for help. With 4 fighters, it would be enough for Luffy to reach the end with less fatigue. I don't like this idea of fighting as a show for others, but I can't leave you with your lives at risk. Zoro agreed to help us. Thank you. We need someone else. Sabo, Ace, and Zoro could all help a lot, however a 4th member would help Luffy so we could be more successful. Fight. Did I hear that right? They need the help of the Mountain King. Who are you? I recognized the young man. He was the same rookie Luffy had defeated. Chapter 25. Previous to Side-Eye. Robin's POV. How are you feeling? I asked the 3 brothers who had just run 4 laps around the sports field. Better than good, Luffy said with a smile, handing some water to Ace and Sabo. Better than yesterday, Ace mentioned, sighing tiredly. Very well, said Sabo, who was having the most trouble breathing due to the exercise. Wow, they are the three dilemmas in person, an optimistic subject, a realistic one and an illusionist. Luffy, your girlfriend, did she call me stupid? Sabo mentioned confused. Luffy and Ace laughed at me. I reset the stopwatch and looked at them seriously. Something like that. 3 more laps mentioned, sending the 3 to run again. Yes, they said, scared, and started to leave at full speed. Of Luffy. While I was in the field, Ace and Sabo were attacking me. I was learning to dodge attacks better. After all the time I was recovering, it was wasted time because I thought I would never fight like this again in my life. However, I could still remember the skills I developed during that period. Again. Did you develop this through training? Ace asked once I stopped his fist. And? Amazing, Sabo mentioned. Okay, quick kick. Ace attacked me, and I quickly stepped back to avoid being hit. Why do you say the names of your attacks? Sabo asked, confused by what Ace mentioned. He smiled and looked at us. Great warriors name their attacks. Sabo and I looked at each other for a moment and then looked back at him with a certain expression of disgust. Amazing. Pistol attack. Dragon fist. Sabo and I said while doing air punch actions. What the heck was that? Our 4th team member asked. Oh, Inosuke, how nice that you arrived. I greeted him with a smile. I want to try it too. The 4 of us started naming our hits while chasing each other in circles. They look like little kids. On the other hand, Robin and the girl who accompanied Inosuke looked at us from the bench. Robin's Pav. In the days before the tournament, both Luffy and his brothers developed their skills. Ace was good at quick fights, with brute force. Sabo was agile and strategic. Inosuke. I damn insect. Let's say his style was fast, agile, full of low movements that assimilated his features as a mountain animal. Izuko, who accompanied Inosuke, was the one who brought him water or food. Ace and Sabo trained a little on their own in the following days. Luffy recruited Zoro to have some possibility, but we needed someone else to ensure at least having some fights covered that would not end up affecting Luffy. Anyone else? Yes, even if we reach the finals, it is safe to think that others will make our lives impossible if we are defeated in the beginning. Luffy will arrive very exhausted to his fight, Zoro mentioned. We did not know much about the tournament format, but Lucci had new people, and it could affect Luffy to fight against so many opponents before Lucci. Hey, you're taking me too lightly, I can beat anyone. Probably, but there are strong guys who can surprise you, I commented while thinking of someone to help us. However, Zoro stood up and smiled slightly. Understand. I think I have someone in mind. I'll go find him today, he said, stretching a little. Zoro, will he say yes? Luffy asked with some doubt. Yes, I can assure you, Zoro said, smiling. He left our last day of practice or training. He would see us on the day of the tournament. We will get Makino back, Ace said along with Sabo. I don't know who Makino is, but we'll get her back, Inosuke said as he joined us with his explosive attitude. Chapter 26. First battle lost. Of Luffy. How's everyone doing? I asked my team with a smile. But they all said. Ace along with Sabo put some ribbons on their wrists so as not to have complications in their movements. Ready? I was born ready, remember I have a rematch against you, Inosuke said excitedly. Yes, who will you go against? I have no idea, but I'm sure I'm going to beat him. His confidence encouraged us because despite being very energetic, he had very good bases to defend himself. Nezuko, we better go to our seats, Robin commented to Nezuko. Both of them would go to the seats to encourage us among the audience. Yes, luck, Inosuke. I will defeat them all. We heard that the start of the fight would be against a certain shadow. Welcome to the Side-Eye tournament, the best in the world gather for the fight of their lives. The announcer started the first fight, everyone in the stands applauded, bets flew, and the first participant, Raiko the Shadow. To start, a rookie, strong and with a lot to prove, Inosuke entered the combat arena excitedly looking at his opponent with disdain. The king of the mountain will defeat whoever. On the other side, Raiko, the Shadow, fighter from Japan, let the fight begin. The fight began. Raiko quickly put herself on guard waiting for her rival's attack. Inosuke jumped and managed to hit Raiko with a blow. Inosuke manages to land the first blow on Raiko, who seems to be on the defensive. Raiko quickly kicked the young man whose face was attractive to the female spectators in the audience. Damn savage. Raiko mentioned while looking at Inosuke. He smiled and approached to hit him. Raiko quickly took his hand, but Inosuke pounced on him, passing him without much difficulty because due to his flexibility and agility, he managed to place Raiko's head between his legs and with a turn he slammed him against the ground. Impact. A blow with the palm of his hand hit the young Inosuke's exposed abdomen, who was thrown away from Raiko. You'll pay for this, damn it. Inosuke began to cough due to the pain. What was that? Sabo asked when he saw how his partner had been thrown away as if nothing had happened. I hit a delicate area on his abdomen, it's like a 1-inch hit, Ace commented as he watched Inosuke get up. This is bad, Inosuke won't be able to move much because of the pain, Sabo added, analyzing the fight. I doubt he cares, he seems more excited, Zoro said. The three looked at Luffy, who was the only one who hadn't said anything at that moment. Luffy? Inosuke is strong, Luffy said, paying attention. Phew, that hit was good. Surprised. Inosuke stood up and took a deep breath as he stretched out his arms. Ketemono no Kaku Raiko took advantage of the fact that his opponent had many openings and went straight to him. The young man quickly spun around, throwing a kick. He got up once his opponent was stopped and gave 2 consecutive blows to Raiko. In that time, Inosuke jumped and threw a spinning kick, causing Raiko's face to hit the floor of the fighting arena. Brutal. Inosuke, the king of the mountain, has left Raiko on the ground. Now he attacks him, he hits him, kicks him. Raiko cannot defend himself against the brutal attacks of the young man who does not seem to stop. Raiko lost consciousness for a few seconds. Before leaving the arena, he was stopped by Inosuke, who quickly threw him back to the center, jumped on it, hitting his opponent with his legs. Stiff fang kicks and blows, both on the ground and in the air, gave his opponent no chance to catch his breath as he drifted in and out of consciousness for brief moments. Inosuke ended the fight with his final attack, which left Raiko drenched in blood. Let's go. He shouted excitedly. Raiko was out of combat, Inosuke had won, and before the looks of fear, he retreated with a smile on his face. Chapter 27. Second fight. Great fight, Sabo mentioned to Inosuke, who arrived with the others to celebrate having won the first fight. I'm the best, Inosuke mentioned in a very confident tone. I thought you'd have problems. Just one, my rival was weak, the young man mentioned, stretching. After a while the arena had been cleared, and in the next match the group watched as Lucci's team won resoundingly. Who's next? Luffy asked, observing that the announcer would make the announcement for the next match. Looks like me, Zoro mentioned, stretching a little, warming up for his fight. Zoro. Don't worry, I don't know who my rival will be, but I don't plan on losing, he mentioned while sighing, one saying that he walked to start his confrontation. Second fight, Rorano as Zoro against a mysterious man, known to many as Hawkeye. They heard the name of Zoro's rival from the presenter. Who is that? Zoro must be careful, Ace mentioned, looking at the opponent, a guy with a serious and overwhelming look. What's happening? That guy looks strong, Sabo mentioned. It shows in his aura, Inosuke confirmed with an anxious tone, expectant of what the fight would be like. What nerve to fight in a place like this, Mihik mentioned with evident annoyance on his face. Not very refined for you? Zoro mentioned while stretching. At all. Well, then I'll make it worth your while, he stood on guard. The fight starts now. Zoro went straight for him to try to connect a blow, however Mihik quickly stopped him with his palm. With a spin he hit him, followed by 3 consecutive blows. Much lower than I expected. Zoro sighed and stretched a little. He quickly threw 3 punches which Mihik received. Zoro immediately pushed his opponent, however Mihik approached very calmly. Not bad. If you say so. Zoro threw a punch but was dodged by Mihik, who quickly counterattacked with 2 punches. Zoro gradually adapted to his opponent's blows. Okay, let's get this started. Mihik smiled at his rival's confidence. With his open palm he quickly struck. Zoro felt a slight cut. It was the ability called Hawkeye. He sighed and advanced despite each cut, standing in front of his rival. Without thinking he hit him, but a cut appeared before him. Swordless style. I mentioned this, smiling at Mihik's surprised look, who looked at him, smiling at having a similar rival. So you've mastered this too, interesting. Mihik advanced but was stopped by the green-haired man, who made a slight cut on his face. Mihik with the tips of his fingers managed to hit Zoro's chest. You won't defeat me with that alone. No need, you are far inferior to me, Mihik replied as he took a step back. What? Zoro felt the cut shortly after, knowing that his rival had a lot of technique with this one. He sighed and concentrated, he couldn't afford to lose. Zoro takes a deep breath and enters a state of mind, analyzes his opponent and runs towards him, launching a direct blow. Mihik evades him and thinks of cutting him, however Zoro grabs his arm and pulls him towards him, impacting his fist against his face. Mihik quickly hits him in the left eye with the tips of his fingers. Damn. Now you can't continue with a single movement. He left a huge mark on his chest. Zoro fell to his knees. Disappointing. Zoro said, falling to the ground unconscious. Chapter 28. Fire Fist Ace. Of Luffy. Zoro. He hadn't understood the entire fight. Zoro had come out with injuries, however he was still alive. I don't want to ask the obvious, but will he be okay? Sabo asked. Zoro sighed. I am. Take him to the infirmary, Luffy said, looking towards Lucci, who was looking from his seat at the top of that ring. And? Next match, debuting in the tournament and with a particularly incredible name, Fire Fist Ace, the next match would begin. Ace was next on the list. Ace? My turn has come. Good luck, Luffy said to his brother. The rookie against someone we know, Akainu the Unbreakable. Ace didn't trust his rival, he waited for him to attack, and his patience was rewarded as he managed to dodge the first punch. He quickly tried to respond with an attack, but his rival blocked it, getting closer to land a punch in his face. However, Ace didn't get carried away by it, managing to connect a kick against his rival's abdomen. "Rookie, do you know where you are?" Akainu said, giving him a blow that made the young man retreat. However, he did not let it end there, quickly connecting forceful blows against the young black-haired man who in a futile attempt defended himself. But the impact of each blow was such that little by little his strength was giving way. "You're weak." Ace fell to his knees, or at least that's what it seemed. Ace caught his breath and stood up with a look that above all showed his determination not to give up so easily. "Damn, old man." Ace wiped the blood off his face and stood on guard. His rival was unfazed by that attitude. The older man attacked with a series of blows. However, Ace managed to evade each of his attacks, responding with 2 blows to the man who took steps back to regain his composure. But now Ace was the one who, quickly accompanied by kicks, managed to continue attacking the man. "Pick up." The direct blow to the face brought the man down. The crowd was euphoric at such a display of brutality in the fight. The bets increased, and everyone was betting on the young rookie who seemed to have regained the lead in the fight. "You're strong, I admit it, but I don't plan on losing." "Do you think I care?" "The good part hasn't even started yet," said the man while stretching a little. He quickly approached Ace in a single impulse. However, the young man didn't hesitate and responded with a punch in such a way that Akainu brought his hands to his abdomen, which was the one that received the impact. Akainu took a deep breath, and this time Ace was the one who attacked him. The situation was reversed, and Ace had control of the fight. However, with a thrown blow his rival pounced on him, taking control and hitting him directly in the face. Curse. A brief moment, a few seconds, Ace lost control of his own thoughts. Akainu did not forgive that time, and 2 blows to the chest, 2 blows to the face. The bruise affected the young black-haired man. The man, confident of the situation, made his fist come out from his hip and hit Ace's face, but the young rookie managed to stop him. "That. I caught you," Ace said as he took the man's fist with both hands, and with a twist he managed to cause a slip in his wrist. The man screamed in pain. Ace quickly hit the man once he fell to his knees from the fracture of his right wrist. "Take this." Ace landed 2 punches, followed his attack with a kick, and didn't stop when he saw the man fall to the ground. He quickly stomped on his body. The crowd was asking for blood, and Ace was willing to give it to them. He continued his attacks on the man who was lying motionless. Ace looked at the motionless man and stopped. His breathing was labored. The fatigue was too exhausting for him. The public acclaimed him as the winner. Ace, the rookie in a brutal wrestling show, has emerged the winner. Ace snorted and walked to his place with his brother, who congratulated him for having won their fight, but Ace was exhausted. If he had been confident and had not attacked, without a doubt his resistance would have taken its toll, and he would have been the one lying on the ground. "I didn't know I could die almost," the young man said, smiling at his brother. They would wait to see the next fight. Chapter 29. A pause. Of Ace. I sighed and lay down on the ground for a moment. The fight had been complicated, and despite having won it didn't feel like that. It was complicated. "I noticed," Sabo said as he threw me a bottle of water. I took a sip and remembered about Luffy's friend. "How's Zoro doing?" "She's in the infirmary, she'll be fine." After that the presenter made an announcement. The competitors waited to see what it was about. "After a break we will continue with the fights." "That's great, I'm very hungry," Luffy said, arriving with Inosuke, who seemed eager to start the fight. "Of Luffy." "Hello Robin. I saw Zoro's fight, how are you feeling?" she said. They had come to see how we were. While we waited for the food we all decided to chat a little. "Okay, luckily we won this last one," I said, taking a seat. Sabo and Ace smiled at the comment. "Does it wash?" "How exciting, I can't wait to fight," he said excitedly, throwing punches in the air as a sign that he was eager for the fight to start. "Hey, save that energy for later." "Who's going next?" Inosuke asked, intrigued. "New." "Sure, I trained hard for this," my brother commented with some confidence. Luffy and his companions went to the dining room and enjoyed a banquet, charging their energies and preparing for the next fight. Sabo was prepared and did not know his opponent, but was confident and did not intend to lose to anyone. "I think it's time." Chapter 30. A Beast. Debuting in the tournament, Sabo, against one of the most well-known warriors, with Burgess. A tall man with a mask on his face, alluding to the old wrestlers. Sabo for his part was just stretching a little. "You're too small, I'll tear you to pieces," said the masked man as he bumped his fists, looking at the young blonde man who finished his stretches. "I'm sorry, but I don't think you can beat me," Sabo commented while giving a confident smile. Very confident, brat. "Why don't you come and find out why?" Burgess took that as a threat and smiled, confident that he could defeat him with a single blow. "And?" Burgess put himself on guard and quickly went toward Sabo. Despite his height he was quite fast, and Sabo waited patiently until he was very close so he could land a kick, however Burgess reacted looking for a counterattack, with his fist being stopped by Sabo's hand. The art of fighting is very complex, Sabo said with a more serious tone. Quickly with one movement he managed to lift the man until he hit the ground. There were no more words from the blonde who quickly kicked the fighter's face. He reacted late to get up, but Sabo didn't let him even move, giving another kick. Burgess moved away to get up, but Sabo continued to locate a point which he hit with his fist, making the big man fall again. Damn. Sabo gave a side blow. Burgess was on the ground without being able to know how he couldn't get up. Sabo for his part was calm watching his rival dominating the battle up to this point. Okay, let's get serious. As soon as he leaned his body, Sabo did nothing. He waited for his opponent to be standing. Now Burgess attacked the blonde, failing in his attack. However, Sabo could not hit the man because his fist was stopped by the fighter's palm. It's my turn to teach you. He squeezed his palm, trapping Sabo's fist, pulling him towards him and delivering a blow that tilted the blonde, causing him to crash to the ground. Burgess didn't hesitate, he simply went towards him and continued hitting the floor where Sabo was, blow after blow, until the screams of excitement from the public turned into an uncomfortable silence, which seemed that now no one enjoyed the brutality that was happening in the arena. Are you dead yet? Burgess received a blow that made him take a few steps back. He sighed and watched as Sabo got up with some blood and an angry look. You like me? Burgess smiled as the crowd started to scream excitedly again. As soon as Burgess took a step, Sabo quickly went to him, dodging the masked man's initial blow and getting behind him to pounce and grab him by the neck. The judo lock was what Sabo applied to the fighter who had difficulty escaping. However, he adjusted himself as much as he could and jumped. There was quite a height between those two with respect to the ground, and without hesitation they hit it. Ah, it seems you can't take a good fall. The masked man said as Sabo struggled to get up. Now Burgess went towards him and landed 2 blows against the blonde, who remained on the ground for a few moments until he got up again. My lungs and organs are damaged, Sabo said with difficulty while he spat out some blood. That's too bad, let me. Sabo slapped Burgess's hands when he tried to make a prayer gesture. He looked at the young blonde man who lightly tapped the man's chin. You will destroy my organs but never my pride. Burgess smiled, and as he took a step he fell to the ground. Everything around him moved in a deformed way. Sabo sighed, and although it was painful he had managed to buy himself a little time. Damn. Burgess closed his eyes and stood up, even with it his head was spinning, but he didn't stop. When he opened them he ran toward Sabo, who stopped the man, a Jew-style clash, both pushing each other without giving in to either of the other, despite the abysmal size and build of the masked man. I will defeat you, Burgess said, taking the young man by the arms and lifting him up. However, Sabo took advantage of that momentum and with a spin, slammed both feet against Burgess's face. When he was released by this achievement, he fell on his feet to the ground and quickly slammed a fist against the man's abdomen. It's kill or be killed, I choose to kill. Burgess fell to his knees, he felt the presence of a beast. Sabo took the fighter's face with his hand, pretending to be one while he complained in pain. The greatest dishonor a masked man could have was to be stripped of his most sacred symbol. However, Sabo only finished it off with a simple blow which left the man out of combat. Chapter 31. The Weakest, Part 1. Luffy's POV. That was amazing, Sabo, I said excitedly, shaking hands with my brother Sabo. Not bad, this will be over soon, Sabo said as he watched the next fight approaching. He was pretty sure the final would be easy. Lucci from the top was very confident, and so was I. That's right, I'm almost ready to give that idiot the beating of his life, I said, smiling while giving this guy the middle finger. I'll go to the infirmary, Sabo commented as he walked with some difficulty. Are you okay? I'm not as tough as you, I'll just rest a little and come back to watch the other fights, my brother commented with a smile as he was on his way to Zoro's place as he was resting after that fight against Hawkeye. Robin? How is Sabo feeling? I noticed he took a lot of damage, she said, somewhat worried about my brother. I smiled and hugged her. He's in the infirmary. That fight was incredible, where is the blonde? Inosuke said excitedly, jumping eager to be able to fight again, although given the time there might not be another fight against him. Nursing, on the right. I'll go see him. Don't hit him, Nezuko said, following him. Not at all, I mentioned this from afar. How's everyone? Robin asked. I smiled and responded somewhat cheerfully. We'll win this, only Zoro is recovering, although Sabo was very injured, surely a little rest would do him good if there was an extra fight for him. Don't they need one? Robin asked, somewhat worried, as she watched the new member's turn arrive soon. Must arrive. Do you know who it will be? I shrugged, not knowing his name or appearance, as Zoro told us to leave it to him. Chapter 32. The Weakest, Part 2. Zoro trusts him and I trust him, so I think everything will be okay. Both Robin and Luffy and company approach to see the fight with which everything would end and give rise to the main event. The great rematch of Lucci and Luffy. For the latter, everything would finally end, and he would enjoy his days as a simple and normal student, although given his potential, he had nothing simple. It's okay, Luffy, you should rest too, Robin commented, somewhat worried about the young man's condition, who despite the fact that he would fight soon, had been very injured a few months ago. I'll be fine, I already beat Lucci, Luffy said with his typical smile, and confident that he could win. But now he has surely trained, Robin exclaimed when he saw Luffy fight on that occasion. He felt some fear for everything he was suffering and for all the damage that those fights had caused in his body, but those fears were calmed when he saw him rise with victory. But now Lucci was back and he looked confident. He was a man of his word in a certain way, but also someone traitor who would not hesitate to do whatever it took to win. And I also have my trick up my sleeve, Luffy said, watching the fight that was about to begin. Fine, just don't get too confident, Robin said looking at the fighter. Next fight, we are close to this end, our last fight will be the main event, but there is still one last fighter left, let's give Frankie a round of applause. Super, said the man next to Luffy, a guy with blue hair and glasses, and the most notable thing about him was the lack of pants on his lower part. On the other hand, Mr. Pink, the most his opponent. Many were left laughing at the ridiculous style of both, however each of them was serious and did not hesitate to start their fight. The fist hit each of their faces, a simple fight without much dialogue in between, while the spectators laughed. Little by little each of them began to pay attention to the fight before them. I won't ask the reasons why you look like that, but I respect your way of fighting with your bare hands, Frankie said, while wiping his face due to the blood he had. Looking at his opponent, he spat on the ground and walked towards him. You're right to keep quiet and fight, I don't like this kind of events, but money is necessary, said his opponent as he walked towards him. I understand, so you're here for that, Frankie said as he walked towards his opponent until he was face to face. And that's why I won't lose. Both of them hit each other equally, taking turns being admired by those spectators who were watching a fight that was different from the usual. Chapter 33. The weakest, final part. Fists and blood, sweat and exhaustion were what the public watched in the fight, admired, some questioning the possible result, a young man with strange hairstyles and blue hair against another whose appearance resembled a baby with his clothes. Each one giving their all in that fight, feeling the pain and the sentiment as they fought for something in particular, the sentiment of each one given in battle, even though no one understood it. A man fighting for the well-being of another, a man fighting simply for honor and pride, neither would give in to the other, they did not hesitate to hit each other, turn after turn, a complex fight between them although ridiculous to the public. The result would be determined with a test of endurance. Mr. Pink took a step back. Frankie stopped waiting for him to recover, but his opponent could not take it anymore, standing he had simply been knocked unconscious. The fight is over. Of Luffy. Incredible. Without a doubt, I said accompanying Ace's comment, we were both amazed at the fight that had happened. That was beyond amazing, it was super. It was my turn, there was no doubt about it, the main event. We had come to this just so he wouldn't have any problems. It would be a fight at our best to put an end to this conflict. The fight would soon begin, my companions were with me, I prepared for the fight, both mentally and physically, because I was determined to put an end to all this. The next fight, the main event, the long-awaited rematch between Lucci and Luffy, place your bets. The announcer announced the last fight after a long while, in front of my opponent who, in front of the entire audience, took off his shirt, revealing some of the marks he had left from the previous fight. I sighed and entered the fighting arena, the last fight, and finally I could be free one way or another. Okay, let's end this. I'm wondering the same. Let the battle begin. Chapter 34. The last fight. Follow. Of Luffy. Incredible. Without a doubt, I said accompanying Ace's comment, we were both amazed at the fight that had happened. That was beyond amazing, it was super. It was my turn, there was no doubt about it, the main event. We had come to this just so he wouldn't have any problems. It would be a fight at our best to put an end to this conflict. The fight would soon begin, my companions were with me, I prepared for the fight, both mentally and physically, because I was determined to put an end to all this. The next fight, the main event, the long-awaited rematch between Lucci and Luffy, place your bets. The announcer announced the last fight after a long while, in front of my opponent who, in front of the entire audience, took off his shirt, revealing some of the marks he had left from the previous fight. I sighed and entered the fighting arena, the last fight, and finally I could be free one way or another. Okay, let's end this. I'm wondering the same. Let the battle begin. Luffy vs Lucci, the final fight of that tournament, the euphoric public bet on the young black-haired man, Luffy, who had made a name for himself in the previous fight. It was the rematch, and Lucci was prepared. Impact. Two blows in the stomach of the young Luffy, quickly took 2 steps back to catch his breath, was surprised by the new speed of his opponent, however he also had new tricks. He stopped 2 punches, and they were consequent. Lucci, surprised, realized that all his movements were defended. You improved. I had to. I can't ask. Luffy said, being the one who attacked now. Lucci barely noticed, his opponent's speed surpassed him, however there was something that Luffy didn't count on. Luffy. This is strange, it seems too easy for this to be the final fight. I know I've trained a lot, but I know this guy, he's hiding something from me. My suspicions were right, this guy's fist is getting closer, I see it in slow motion, I don't know why my reflexes aren't activating, but I only see his hand getting closer and closer. I was hit by a punch. When I tried to react to this impact I got another blow. I couldn't believe I was being hit so easily by this bastard. Incredible, rival Luffy is being riddled with constant blows from Lucci. Why isn't he dodging? It's not that I couldn't dodge it, it's that my reflexes were off. I noticed a smile on his face. I didn't know what kind of trick that was. For a simple second, I lost sight of him. I didn't know what trick this was, but I had to keep my strength up. I was very resilient, so I had to endure a little longer. Now, I said as I moved my body and stopped Lucci's blow. I still didn't understand his trick, however, now I was stopping his blows, that was progress. I sighed and backed away as much as possible. Being far away, his blows were visible. I looked at the ground. There was no trick. Being so close to him was the secret to not being able to see him. I'll have to trust my instincts. I don't have to take this seriously. I shouldn't get too confident. I have to give it my all and surprise him, otherwise I'll be in serious trouble. Second gear. I concentrated as much as possible. I would increase the pace of this fight. I would surprise him with my speed. However, I realized that he didn't flinch. He stayed waiting, evading my first attack. It's useless. I've improved a lot since last time, Brett. This better not be your best version, otherwise this will be your downfall. He kicked me in the leg. I lost my balance and was riddled with a knee. Being close to him, my attacks have no effect. I have to be faster than this. I'd like to act as quickly as I think, but right now my body is taking a beating. The damage will take its toll. I have to start taking the offensive. Chapter 35. The Awakening. Robin's Pav. Luffy. He's hiding all murderous intent. It's like lowering your presence to zero. Luffy doesn't react because his body and reflexes don't detect any threat. Luffy doesn't know how to relax. He's always alert, and his instincts can't detect any threat. Sabo said, somewhat worried. He had returned from the infirmary to watch the fight, somewhat distressed to see his brother being beaten like that. How can you solve that? I asked, somewhat worried when I saw that Luffy was in trouble. Right now there's no way. Lucci has a huge advantage. Even if they're weak hits, the damage is constant. He's just waiting. On the other hand, Zoro arrived with some bandages and a close look at the fight. I asked, confused. Lucci, you just have to keep going like this for as long as possible. When Luffy gets exhausted, he'll start attacking harder and his reflexes will kick in, but they won't be precise due to his lack of energy. Sabo commented, seeming to assume that Luffy would lose if he didn't do something. No, Luffy trained a lot. He will resist until he finds a way to adapt, then he will wake up, Zoro complained while watching the fight closely. Wake up? Copying everything he sees was just the tip of the iceberg. Luffy is really talented. He is not a prodigy, but at least he has a higher level than others. Zoro seemed confident in his words. I didn't know what he meant, but before my eyes Luffy was being hurt in many places. Luffy. Quarter. Lucci was confused when he saw my open palm. It wasn't an attack at all, it was the same technique as this one, improved in my form. Kong. The compressed air impact was my offensive. I smiled and pushed myself as far as possible to be able to attack. It's not my best way, you'll see now. I said with a smile. My attacks now had an effect, even though I hid his presence so as not to see him now. I only need my hand to aim. Lucci was surprised. The air impact was similar to his fist technique. Angry, his presence became visible, his instinct was seen. Luffy now had to attack. Lucci began to defend himself from those blows. Between so much impact he forgot for a few moments that now there was no need to be touched. Damn, you stole my technique. I didn't steal anything, I designed a Kong just for you. Luffy said with a sigh. Using that technique required all his strength, so he had to be selective when to use it. However, to his surprise, Lucci was smiling. Well, I was expecting a surprise. Now you will notice my best form. This is my peak, the pinnacle of my strength and skill. Luffy stood still. He felt Lucci's enormous presence, an aura which seemed to be in complete tune. He reacted right at that moment, evading a blow that would surely leave him very damaged. What is this? My animal instinct. I'm going to kill you. Luffy went on the defensive. He was having a problem now that Lucci went on the offensive. He had no way to attack his blows, it left him without energy, while Lucci was riddling his attacks without problem. What's wrong? You relied too much on your fists. Lucci was hit, a kick which left him surprised. Luffy switched to a lighter style, his fists were now palms. More tricks. Just the last one, Luffy said as I smiled. Both went and attacked each other without much drama, blow after blow, both were in sync, blow that Luffy connected, blow that Lucci returned, a fight with everything they were giving, and neither was going to give in because they had a clear objective. Neither wanted to lose, neither would back down, they were at a stalemate where every hit mattered. Lucci and Luffy were at a stalemate, exhausted, but their fighting spirit remained burning. Both of them are retreating, it seems they are at their limit. Who will emerge victorious? Lucci, the man who has only lost once and it was against Luffy, or will it be Luffy, the rookie who made Lucci taste defeat? Will the rematch be his? Luffy sighed, let out his breath and smiled, his body was lighter despite the damage he had received. He looked at his rival with that determination that characterized him and prepared himself. What's going on? Robin asked from the balcony. Here it comes, Zoro said, confident of what would happen. Chapter 36. Freedom at its highest level. Zoro's pause, days before the fight. Stand up, I said to Luffy once I knocked him down in our training. He looked at me smiling. For my taste, he wasn't taking our training seriously, maybe he was trusting, but that was wrong in my opinion. I can't take it anymore, Luffy said as he lay down. I looked at him seriously and kicked him quickly. Don't ask that, I said, standing up. He looked at me smiling a bit, thinking I was just joking. Hey, be more patient. I kicked him again, and he seemed somewhat puzzled about it. Stand up. Zoro, his gaze changed and he looked more serious. What are you going to do? I said, challenging him. Bam. He stood up, threw a punch which I deflected, followed by another which I deflected again. He was slow, he was tired, yes, but that was no excuse for being so weak at this moment. I know how strong Lucci is, with your previous level it was lucky that you beat him, now with this level he's going to defeat you easily. I'm strong. He couldn't say anything else because I knocked him down instantly. Really? He sighed and stood up, his expression changing, he exhaled and smiled. I stood on guard and waited for his attack. Second gear. Something new. How free I feel, he said without stopping smiling. It was like seeing a different guy, and with that he came towards me. It seemed like he was just playing, but his attacks were faster. I dodged the best I could, but Luffy didn't stop. I managed to block a punch, but he responded by grabbing my arm, and with a spin, he slammed me into the floor. Present. Robin's paw. Free? I asked, confused at the word Zoro said regarding Luffy. I don't know how to explain it. Luffy simply lets himself be carried away by the freedom that his body offers. We can say that it is simply when his mind stops taking control and his body does his will. If he wants to win, he will, Zoro commented, explaining the situation. When watching the fight, I could only feel some fear about what was happening. Luffy evaded attacks looking for some kind of opportunity, but this didn't seem to be going anywhere. Luffy? Is it like breathing? Inosuke said excitedly, waving and hitting the bars as he watched the fight with Nezuko. That? Yes, breathing, concentrating on points. I usually wear a mask so I see darkness, so I use sound. It's my mountain breathing technique. I know a guy who falls asleep and is very fast, Inosuke commented, while explaining something about the technique he used, comparing it to the state that seemed to make Luffy stronger. It washes. That guy is extremely strong, he said seriously. Luffy will defeat him. Come on, Luffy. Finish the guy. Of Luffy. I laughed a little at his attacks. My body reacted at a more precise pace. His blows were insane, however my reflexes were better, and I could attack without problem. Our fists would impact, and you could notice the level we were both at that moment. And? Bray faced his attacks, which were no longer as fast. His state was becoming predictable to me at that moment. I managed to land a punch. I didn't leave time for reaction, and so that he wouldn't recover, I continued attacking blow after blow. What is this? Lucci said angrily, seeing me with some energy in the fight, smiling at what was happening. I wasn't tired, I was just feeling my body, and as if I could take anything I wanted. I'm free. What stupidity. Lucci went against me and started hitting me, blow after blow, kick combined with his speed. Ha ha ha, I said, laughing at his blows, stopping him with my hands, hooking his wrists with the palms of my hands. You're crazy. Maybe. Ha. Ha. I said, headbutting him, followed by a blow, then forcefully turning around and then lifting him up to hit him against the ground. My body was free. It's hard to explain what I feel right now, but in heaven as on earth, my body dictates my movements, because everything I want is within my reach. Nothing can be lacking because there's nothing to take. I simply feel free from everything, nothing matters. Chapter 37. The grand finale of the fight. Robin's paw. Luffy. With my hands together I was praying to the gods or whoever would listen that Luffy would emerge victorious from this fight. I longed for all of this to end and for me to finally have some closure on my past. Flashback. I'm hungry. I know, little one here, this bread will help. He said this while giving me some bread wrapped in paper. At that time this was the greatest thing I could have given the conditions we had, however he never denied me anything, he gave me books and education as much as possible. I appreciated every detail of it, even though I knew where that money came from, the struggles, the fights, everything that meant sacrificing his life and integrity, just so he would be okay. End of flashback. Please Luffy win. That's what Robin said as the fight entered its final stage. Luffy moved faster than before, but Lucci kept up with him, landing blow after blow. They were at their peak, they were in their best fighting shape. The damage from his fists is affecting me, Luffy said as I smiled, he stopped as he clenched his fist. The damage from his blows is tiring me, Lucci said standing right in front of him, clenching his fist and extending it to be able to hit. We are in perfect condition to finish it. They both said, throwing a final blow, Lucci received the impact on his face, Luffy also, both of them threw themselves to opposite sides and got up instantly, there was no time to lose, they were willing to fall and get up as many times as necessary. I fight for my pride as a fighter, and I don't plan on losing to a failure, Lucci said, blocking his opponent's attack by kicking him harder. Luffy stopped for a second, reacting instantly. I don't care what you fight for, you messed with a woman I love and you'll pay dearly for it, he took advantage of the opening, a precise headbutt against Lucci only made him angry. Love is not a motivation, I grab her hair, ready to end this. What do I care? Luffy just pushed himself back, taking his rival with him, as soon as his back touched the ground, Luffy pushed him with his legs to the other end. Lucci was slow to get up, however he was greeted by a kick, Luffy climbed on top of him and began a series of blows. Damn bastard, Lucci shouted, clasping his fists together. Sadarin, Roku Ugan. Luffy knew at that moment that the attack was similar, however he could not escape receiving the impact of the wave. Ah, I don't care how many times you hit me with that, Luffy said as he stood up at the same time as Lucci. I don't care how many times you hit me, Lucci mentioned between light gasps as they both got up and he was ready to continue fighting. I'm going to show you that, Lucci said running towards him. I ascended to a new level. Luffy also ran towards him. Luffy landed multiple blows, Lucci using his resistance technique received all of them, the moment he counterattacked Luffy knew it, he was about to make that move, he moved away as far as he could, a punch brought back. Lucci realized and retreated, if he attacked now it would be his downfall, both anticipated the movements of his rival, they were in perfect synchrony, blow after blow, blood was visible, the members of the stand shouted euphorically at the fight. Yes, yes. Luffy. Lucci said as he went towards him, both of them collided their fists against his body, they were at a standstill, Luffy was fast, and his punches caused havoc, Lucci's punches were slow but heavier. The crowd was screaming, hoping that one of them would soon faint, but both were equally damaged, and a single blow would decide the fight. Incredible. The presenter was shocked by the result, a man standing, however the audience was somewhat uneasy with the winner's gestures. First of all, the winner is. Ha, 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 I won. Luffy shouted as he fell to the ground laughing non-stop, leaving the audience somewhat uneasy and, among other things, also laughing at the result. It was fun. The winner is Luffy. That's what the presenter said while Luffy couldn't stop laughing. Chapter 38. Final. Of Luffy. Can you still continue? I asked, walking weakly towards Lucci who was lying on the ground face up. I sighed and although I was exhausted, injured and above all at my limits, I still maintained my defense and reflexes for any surprise attack. Damn, he said. Now I see it, the most painful thing you've ever felt was your pride being crushed, I explained looking at him, all this time I just wanted to prove that I was the man others knew, and I, wrongly, made him see that I wasn't that strong anymore. Be quiet. No, I'm serious. I didn't mean to do that. I just want Robin to be happy. Although I felt I owed him an explanation, I couldn't just crush his pride. It seemed to be the only thing he had left. My intention was to see Robin happy and nothing else. This fight, this prize didn't matter to me. You barely knew her for a few days. Well, we're going to be a few months as such, I said laughing lightly, I trained for her, I fought for her, and now I could finally be by her side without so much problem, after all since I met her, I understood that her life was complicated by the decisions she had to make, and that being a teacher was something important to her. You defeated me, Lucci said, he looked at me angrily, and at the same time I looked at him with some pity. I did it. Good for you, kid. He mentioned this, he had won, it was finally all over. Luffy? Are you okay? I looked at Robin and gave him a smile. I was quite rude, I said closing my eyes and falling to the ground. Luffy? His voice was the last thing I heard before collapsing. Robin's paw. After a few days after that fight, we had all gathered at my house. Luffy spent that time resting, and when he woke up I would have a good feast of food for him. "So you're leaving?" I asked Inosuke, who was carrying some food that both Nezuko and I had prepared. "Yes, Nezuko's brother is waiting for us somewhere else. I hope to see Luffy someday. I want to fight this guy," our screaming partner commented. However, after the fight he was waiting for Luffy to wake up, however he was left with that pending. "You will," Inosuke said smiling, "maybe one day these two could have their revenge." "Yes, take care of him, let's go Nezuko," he said, saying goodbye. "It was a pleasure to have met you, see you later," Nezuko commented following the young man. "Wow, and to think the fight was super," Frankie commented, who along with Zoro were packing their things. Apparently they were both going on some kind of trip along with other acquaintances. "Where are you going, Frankie?" "I'll be back with my good friend Zoro. He promised me a good soda after helping you," he said. Seeing that Zoro was already leaving, he hurried to catch up with him, and from the window they said goodbye. "See you later, sweetheart." "Zoro, that's the wrong way," she said from a distance, running for Zoro, who was going somewhere else. Ere saw them, now she was alone waiting for Luffy to wake up. I returned to the kitchen and prepared some coffee for myself. I walked over to his bed and took a seat next to Luffy. "Everyone has left, Luffy, they hope for your speedy recovery. You know, at the beginning of all this I thought maybe you were just a young man with some kind of problem in your head. Now that all this has happened, I still believe that you have problems, but a noble heart deep down. I think the fact that you're with me makes you even more special. You know, I feel like you really deserve better than me." Saying all this when he was technically unconscious made it a little easier to express my feelings to him. Of course, there wasn't much to say given what we had already done. "Robin, I love you." He smiled and I was embarrassed by the fact that he listened to my every word. I was definitely with the perfect person, even though I felt a little less because of it. However, I think in the end it's something I have, an insecurity that he could take away from me. "We're back. Is Luffy awake?" Ace said, arriving with Sabo. Fortunately for both of them, Luffy woke up with his usual smile after several days, undoubtedly with a huge appetite. I think that at the end of everything, my life can now start to improve, at least a little. "I love you, Luffy. Maybe in the end, my life is somewhat complicated, but that doesn't mean I won't want to live it, especially if I have Luffy with me." Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.